Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pressing Forward podcast. Today I've got with me Devin Nesselroth. He's a United States Marine, and he's also the chairman of mountain bikes for O3s and 11Bs. It's a pretty cool concept, and he's got some interesting stuff to talk about. So Devin, how you doing today, dude? I'm glad you're here.
Thanks, man. I'm doing really good today. It's been, an average day for me of all over the place with everything going on.
Yeah.
Um, and now I'm down here at the firehouse. So I got good internet and so I can give this um podcast.
Yeah, dude, definitely. It's funny. I shouldn't say funny, but you're like out in the fucking sticks of Idaho, man. So it's cool. One, that you've got the availability to come down and use the firehouse. Seems like a good community, so you can utilize the Wi-Fi to get this thing going.
Yeah, yeah, it's a really strong community up here when you live out in an area that's really far out there. It's awesome to have strong community, and I just recently joined our volunteer fire department, which kind of plays into this story in its own way.
Nice, dude. I like hearing that, like not only are you doing stuff for the veteran community, but you're out there engaging in the community that you live in. So that's cool to hear stuff like that. And I'm, grateful for you to make the journey down to the trek down to be able to sit here. So with that being said, let's jump into it, dude. Give me a little background about where you're from and what life was like growing up.
Oh man, I grew up in Meriden, Connecticut, kind of a cliche little East Coast inner city type of town. Oh, hold on here. We might have something going on. Um, I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, I heard a little something in the background, but is that like your dispatch or something at the fire station?
Yeah, and it's actually raining. It's for our EMS stuff. I don't expect anything of that. So with the fire station out here, most of what we do is wildland fire, right? We're in forest fire area. So yeah, it's raining right now. I don't expect too much, but we got some EMS stuff too, I guess.
Okay.
Um us though. Or
So
not,
at any point in time throughout this, like you could get called into onto duty and you got to go run and fight some fires.
I highly doubt it. Again, it's raining out, so we don't got much forest fire at the moment, and structural is pretty rare. And I don't do any of our structural things. I'm basically, for forest fire and EMS sometimes if car accidents are pretty bad.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, as I was saying, sorry about that.
It's all good.
In Meriden, Connecticut, it's like, super cliche East Coast inner city type of area. And man, I kind of grew up like a shithead, I guess I'd say by the time I hit high school. My friends and I are running around like thinking we're little thugs type of thing. And, nothing really good coming from that. And some of my older buddies, that had joined the Marine Corps, they'd come back and they're, squared away and they got money. And, I just kind of started to realize that, my other friends that are like going to jail that are a bit older, like they're in and out of jail, and just that, like, that's what it's kind of going to be for me if I don't stop fucking around, basically. And, I started talking to a recruiter and I started signing some papers, and my recruiter, he's kind of in my ear, basically, like, you got to get right. You can't be running around a fool, basically. And, man, I got in a fight in high school, and that was kind of a big deal. While the security guard was breaking it up, I socked him in the mouth. Um, and yeah, that was and so I, got arrested, and charged with assault on an officer, on a peace officer, which in, courts is held the same.
Yeah.
Um, so these are like kind of serious charges out of nowhere as like 16. And man, my recruiter was able to take care of, kind of help it all just kind of go away. They got the case nollied because you can't enlist if you're on probation.
Right.
Oh, the recruiter got me like this huge hookup on the understanding that I was going to enlist, and I, finished up my paperwork and I enlisted into the infantry. And they continued to help me out too, throughout my senior year. My recruiter was really amazing. Can't say enough good about those dudes. And my other friends that they helped out too, get into the Corps, get out of that area, all kinds of good things to say there.
Yeah, that's I know that there's good stories that some people have with recruiters, but I think they're few and far between or on the side of positivity. A lot of negative stories come from recruiters either lying or baiting somebody into service or whatever it may be. But to see that you had a good experience with your recruiter going above and beyond to help you out, that's pretty huge. I know that there are good recruiters out there.
And that's why I try to point that out because it is kind of rare. But he ended up going on to be a career recruiter. Just about anybody that enlisted out of that area in general out of New England eventually, uh, throughout the mid 2000s, that dude's probably somewhere on their paperwork.
Yeah, so
Uh,
what year is it then that you ultimately like finish up high school? What is it like 04, 05?
'05. I graduated high school, like, mid June of '05. I go to boot camp August 1st of '05.
Okay. Well, let's take a like a one step back. I want to ask you, so being a little bit older, when 9/11 happened, you're probably what, like a freshman or sophomore in high school when 9/11 had happened?
High school. And yeah, man, being from Connecticut, that shit was super close to the point that one of the girls in my class, her dad worked in the trade centers. So we're watching the trade centers fall, and this girl's convinced she's watching her father die. Um,
Jeez.
yeah, yeah, he didn't make it to work that day. He was, en route, whatever it was. He was not in the trade centers that day. But yeah, like, so that extra hit home. But again, like, I was kind of like a little shithead, little thug, like little punk rock, that didn't, exactly make me want to enlist at that time.
Gotcha. But
Um,
it's definitely something that you experience. It's kind of a shock, I think, for anybody. Seeing something like that, it's like holy shit, and then especially finding out the reasons why it happened, like a little bit down the road, or I mean, the day after. It's crazy. But 2005 rolls around, August, you're off to boot camp. Are there any notable mentions, from your experience going from, being that punk rock or like little punk type of kid, calling it being, causing problems and getting into all kinds of shenanigans to Marine Corps boot camp and you got some drill instructor like tearing you down.
no, man, my recruiter, I think, really prepared me mentally for some of that. And at the end of the day, like, dude, I wanted to be there. So I had no problems playing all the games at boot camp, yeah, I really didn't have a problem with the drill instructors, with other recruits. My recruiter had made it clear, like, dude, there's going to be fights at boot camp. That's not what you're there for. Um, I actually, I'm not a fly on the wall type of person. Boot camp wasn't exactly, I guess, smooth, but I thought it was rather easy. I was, on the quarter deck all the time.
Hell yeah.
Uh,
Hell yeah.
uh, you know, uh, then I guess on the note of fights, like, I really didn't get in too many within my platoon. But I don't know how stuff was for you, but our drill instructors would almost encourage us to fight with other platoons at times, march us into the back of another platoon, um, stuff like that. I guess that was kind of notable.
Yeah, I guess the only times we really ever fought other platoons, because I think that at that point they had, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's different because I assume you went to boot camp in Paris Island, but MCRD, there's no like tree lines or places to really go, or MCRD San Diego, there's no places to really be hidden. I guess the only place we really fought other platoons was when you got into the Thunderdome, or you doing like Pugil sticks or like some type of McMap shit, or I don't even know if we fought each other like that in McMap, but definitely with Pugil sticks, we were like, encouraged to beat the shit out of each other.
Well, we notable things in Pugil sticks. Man, dude, I blew my knee out at boot camp and then, continuously through my time in the Corps. But yeah, boot camp, I'm assuming, ACL or something. You couldn't see my knee. I couldn't bend my leg and I don't know how. I'm just carried on with the plan of the day. Um, hobbled around. My drill instructors caught me a little slack throughout that. You could see I was actually injured. Um, but more or less bounced back and
So you didn't get recycled or anything. You just
no,
went, you pushed through it.
no, nothing like that. And then again at SOI, just more or less as soon as we picked up at SOI, I ended up getting 2 months off. If you come through kind of coming towards Christmas, again, I was close with my recruiter. They hooked me up with recruiter's assistance twice, 2 months in a row. I had 60 days home basically after boot
No,
camp.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's an alternate story because I know a lot of guys like from that time going from boot camp to ITB or SOI or whatever, they might give you like 10 days of recruiter's assistance or something. But 60 days, dude, that's a solid little break of, being able to kick back and two, letting your knee be able to heal like that. So that's a hookup.
It was cool. A lot of guys, got the 30 days because when you come through, when everybody, all the high school graduates, right, they come through in these big numbers. So to pick up at that time period, there are a lot of times coming into Christmas, there'd be a little bit of a wait. And I think I graduated boot camp late mid October, I think, and then yeah, so I don't think I picked up until after the new year. So instead of getting stuck down there just sitting around SOI, which is like one of the worst places I've seen in the Marine Corps, to this day, I feel bad for those kids in MRP, how they got treated, calling them malingers and everything. And I come to find out right after you've been in the Corps for so long, who's in charge of those people, the biggest shitheads in the Marine Corps, the ones that got kicked out of like their assigned duties and now they're in charge of these But anyways,
Yeah, that's there's all those kind of little things that you probably think that there could be a better way to handle those situations, but that's neither here nor there, and I don't think we'll ever enact change in those types of things, at least from our position. Um, so you get that time, going through you went through boot camp, you might have gotten IT'd a little more than you needed to, or just as much as you needed to, go through SOI or get that break to let your knee heal, pick up with SOI after Christmas. So, do you
blow
think that,
out. As soon as we get into SOI, blow my knee again. I see how all those people had just gotten treated, and in no way am I about to say anything. I just hobbled through and again, kind of tried to carry on with the plan of the day. I even tried to try out for recon on it, but when you're hobbling and you run something like a 25, don't matter what else you did.
yeah, seriously, they look at that like, oh, we need 18 and under, buddy, for your 3 mile. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So you continue to push through. You didn't get set back in ITV as well. Did you go once you guys hit the split? Did you just stay in 11, or did you go to a weapons
I stayed
MOS? Okay. So 0311, you made it. Do you know right away that you're going to 1st Battalion, 6th Marines?
yeah, more or less, there was you could probably count who didn't go to 1-6. Our entire boot drop went to 1-6. And when you're at you guys, I shortly after it became ITB, it's SOI for us, School of Infantry. Um so when we left, you leave School of Infantry Camp Geiger and you just go across the river to Lejeune. They put you on not even a bus. I think we rode 7 tons. And we all get dropped to the fleet. And that was interesting, checking into 1-6. Um, First Sergeant Hoopy is who checked us in. And he gives us this big motivational speech about how you just checked into Goddong 1-6, and we've been smoke checking them sand monkeys harder than any other unit has been. And
Yeah, because you guys were in Afghanistan in like 2004 or 2005 or something.
'04, and First Sergeant Hoopy it actually has, I think, a silver star for fragging a grenade at the for fragging a cave. And 1-6 left with the highest body count in the Marine Corps. So, we check into 1-6, and here's First Sergeant Hoopy, giving this big spiel. And at the end of it, he goes, if any of you mouth off to any of my senior Marines and they dot you in the mouth, that's your fucking problem. Like, all right, that's how it is around here. That's the fleet at the time, basically. This is,
Yeah. Well, and that shows too that like there's a transition, um, from like the old Corps to kind of like the Marine Corps. I mean, we still, don't get me wrong, we still got fucked up. But there's that idea of like, guys that just come back from whether it be the invasion of Iraq or they're like on that initial couple deployments to Afghanistan or whatever, and you got some hard motherfuckers and they come and they want those junior Marines to be able to be immersed in an environment that's going to get them in that mindset and prepared for shit like that. Like, we don't fuck around here, like you want to step up, you want to act like a man, you're going to get treated like a man. Some people will disagree with that and say like, oh, yes, yet obviously some things can get, pushed too far, but everything in moderation, dude. You get beat up for running your mouth or you do something, you square up to somebody, like you handle your business and then you move forward from that. I don't know. I don't think I can even count how many times I've seen that happen. And it's not like like guys fist fighting each other and then like shrugging it off and hugging it out afterwards, or like platoon on platoon or company on company fights outside. I mean, that's obviously a little further down the road and when you get into shit like that, but um that's what the Marine Corps is, dude. We're good at three things, and those three things are drinking, fighting, and fucking. And it's like that's hold the Marines hold fucking true to that.
Absolutely. And I got into it a couple with some of the boots, but I got into a lot with my senior Marines off of work generally. Um, and then, 1-6 Bravo, I think our famous line is, fuck tanks, because we had the tanks barracks across the quad from us. So we'd get out there on the, we're right next to Heroes. We're right next to the E Club. And, we'd get out on the catwalks drunk as hell, fuck tanks until they'd start screaming back. And then you go, a little brawl with tanks type of thing.
Yeah, I think that's it's funny. I was, on 29 Palms, and I think everybody started to I don't know if it was like a running thing, but all our seniors were like, hey, if you get snatched up by somebody and they ask you what unit you're with, tell them you're with First Tank. So we'd always be like some sergeant or whatever, be like, hey, Marine, like what unit you with? Like, oh, with First Tanks. So some kid getting wrecked in First Tanks because whatever. I don't know. It's yeah, fuck tanks. Um but yeah, so that's Lejeune is a different beast altogether, like when you're like that bar Heroes, I didn't know that it's not even the E Club, right? Like it's just a fucking bar that's on base, right?
It it is, but it is the E Club, but it
Okay.
is owned. Like it's not ran by the Marine Corps.
Right,
Uh,
right.
they run a bar on base, so Heroes is. And conveniently enough, I mean, when I say like we're right next to Heroes, like you would think it's part of the barracks type of thing. Like our parking lot shares it. You can park in their lot if you're not supposed to be driving and type of thing.
That's
Uh,
crazy, dude. That's madness. I can't believe that.
and, right, like
Uh,
our A teams, our weapons company was on the backside where you can see it. Our stay teams would sit up there with airsoft guns and hit people with them.
That's
But
awesome, dude. We used to do like paintball guns. We'd get like hammered and like you'd lay down on the catwalk and there's like a crack, like a crack in the
yeah,
base
yeah,
of the floor of the catwalk, and you could just like pelt people like when they're getting into their cars and they're like, "Oh, what the fuck?"
that's ruthless.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
But paintballs, yeah. Uh,
So what's your, you get to the fleet. This is probably what, like 2000, mid 2006, early 2000. Dude, how's that?
think we make it to the fleet in March, and all of us that were in SOI together go to the fleet together. So we've got a pretty tight group of boots in that sense.
Gotcha.
There, I went through boot camp, SOI, and now we're all 1-6 Bravo. I had a homie from high school that was an Alpha company. He had a pretty, all of us had a crazy deployment, but he had a pretty um, crazy deployment also. Um,
Yeah, so what's the process like for your workup then? Like what are you guys know that you're going to Ramadi?
um, so no, not coming up on the workup. The workup we get there in March, and it's like a traditional workup at the time. You start at the very beginning. We go out to the rifle range, and you do a KD qual. Even though we just did one, we do a KD qual. We come back and we go right into the workup. I always get the two Pickett and AP Hill. I always mix up the names of which one's in which, but or which one's which. We get to the fleet. We start, running rifle ranges on Lejeune. We're training 24/7 also. Our senior Marines have just come back from Fallujah, and some had done that Afghanistan deployment also. And so I'm talking like we're either down at the armory cleaning weapons. If we don't have weapons, like we're in the barracks, we're in the fields, we're in the stairwells, like with sticks and pine cones stacking on doors, being like bang bang. If that's what it is at that moment, our senior Marines are like constantly kicking classes to us. Um, you, this is me, this is you, like radio comm stuff, making us just like literally sit there like this and answer each other in any way. Basically, they're kicking knowledge, we're training. Tape houses, I don't know if you guys use those.
Yep.
Yeah, man, we're constantly laying down tape houses all the way to, or like I said, we're constantly shooting ranges on Lejeune, and then I think it's like we leave for, my bad that I always forget which one's which. So I'll just say in this case, I think we leave for AP Hill for like a month, and it pisses on us. It's the spring on the East Coast. So, it's pissing the whole time we're training. If it's raining, we're training type of deal. Um, we come back and it's more back to that. We're constantly kicking classes. We're constantly working out.
So let me ask you real quick, like the when you guys go to AP Hill for a month, is it like I don't want to say like Mojave Viper, but like an ITX or like a U like a do some squad level, platoon level, and then company level stuff, or is it
Yeah,
all
it's definitely different training. CAX is unique to all training in the world in the sense that you can run like company size element,
right?
So we're doing a lot of squad size stuff, and in some ways it's kind of old because it's designed at like, okay, we're rushing, we're taking a hill, right? And it's army training, so they got super cool ranges for us to run. Though, their targets pop up and down, and after they get hit a certain amount of times, they stay down. They come up, like they've got like cool ranges for us to run. A lot of times it's literally like old school. This idea that you're like taking a hill, but how do you translate that to a mountain environment, to an urban environment? Well, it's still shoot, move, communicate. It's still being on target. Um,
Well, and that's too, like, doing things like that, like even though you're taking a hill, like it's an objective that you're working in conjunction with, a couple other fire teams or maybe another squad in the sense of communication and, where you're setting up like a base of fire, a maneuver element, or how you guys are pushing and doing buddy rushes. And like relaying the messages from one side to the other or inner squad, whatever it may be. It's all those little fundamentals that are going to be incorporated when you start to do that larger scale stuff or more in-depth stuff or going into that urban environment. So, I think that we can all look back at some of that initial training and be like, it may have not served a purpose for the actual things that we were doing in country, but it served a purpose in like familiarizing yourself with the dudes to your left and your right and how you guys function together.
that unit cohesion. And I'd say even by the time we get to CAX for our final workup, at that point, we get to CAX, and I'd say by the time we're there at night, you can tell who's who by the way they move, either even their shadow type of thing. We've
Yeah.
got some pretty cohesion at that point. And
And the cool thing with that too is that you guys, like a lot of the dudes that you're in your platoon, your squad, your company, whatever, even at 1-6, had all just come from this like boot camp SOI together. So now it's like you're able to get a little better rapport, quickly be able to adapt and how you guys are working together and taking those things that you've learned from boot camp and and SOI, and then kind of building on obviously what you're doing with your seniors and all that stairwell training and doing that like butter jam shit and bang bang finger guns and shit like that and so all of those things like I said, I think when we're in the moment, it's like this is fucking ridiculous. But as we get older and we look back on it, like all those things were little lessons that we were being taught on how to properly handle those situations when we get there. So it's all relative, it's all important.
um and you had just asked at what point do we find out we're going to Ramadi, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're at CAX, and Gunny Poe comes back from Leaders Recon. They all come back, and Gunny Poe, they've been gone for about 10 days, and he's like, check it out, boys, like we ain't gonna miss it. I was there for 10 days. We got hit over 30 times at the Gov Center, like, hey, and you hear him like, wait, what? And he's like, yo, they're getting into it 3 times a day, every day. Those boys didn't miss it. Like, um, and so that kind of gets real. You hear your gunny say that, but still, like, right, are they bullshitting us? Because everything in the Marine Corps at that time is like, you gonna die, be ready. so almost, and then Time Magazine drops this article about Ramadi and how, and about 38 Kilo Company and how it's the most dangerous place in the world. How, this strip of road from 296 to 295, there's nothing more dangerous in the world at the time than this area.
And two, this has been a point in time now where they've really started to use EFPs and really started to implement IEDs into the everyday, initiating ambushes. And you've got this three-dimensional environment. And I think anybody that knows a little bit of Marine Corps history on like the units that have been through there, a lot of my senior leadership was in Ramadi with 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. So like they were, that was one of the first units that had been in Ramadi, right? Like that was 2000, early 2004. Um, so I think, being a young man, and I guess this is a question for you, with seeing all this stuff like Time Magazine, 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, Kilo Company, getting it, that this stretch of land to this stretch of land, and these coordinates are like really fucking dangerous, and seeing the body count and the numbers that are coming back, what kind of stuff are you guys thinking about, or maybe that your senior leadership is talking to you guys about in a way to prepare you for what you're about to experience?
Our senior leadership's talking about complacency. This shit's fucking real. Like we did all this training for a reason. Now you need to get in a mindset that this is real. Our senior Marines, in terms of like our team leaders, are basically, acting hard. A lot of them, like I said, had been to Fallujah, but they didn't fight in Fallujah. The majority of them, they were the first unit there after the Battle of Fallujah. So the majority of them haven't seen any combat. Their deployment to Fallujah sucked. Don't let me take anything from them just because they didn't fire, and the majority didn't, fire shots or anything like that. But they're hard basically, right? They're
Yeah,
infantry.
they're a little seasoned, they've done some foot patrols, might have gotten in a couple gunfights or something, might have been blown up in whatever the situation may be, but they've got a little experience under their belt that they're able to, one, be in that leadership position where you're not going to show weakness, even though that you may be scared, you may be thinking about these things going on, but you got to remain hard, right? Isn't that like the motto for 1-6? Like you guys like
One six,
1-6 hard? Yeah, you guys just say, yeah. So that's like that. Yeah,
not
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, there you go. So you've got this little bit of, and is there things that you can see, like, these guys are trying to act like they've got it going on, they're hard, they know what it is, but are there signs that you're picking up that you can see the nerves are like tensions getting a little high, people are getting nervous? What kind of things are you seeing?
Some of them, yeah, actually, so they ask who wants to go to guard force after we get this report back, who doesn't want to be here, basically. And to see some of the senior Marines actually step forward and be like, yeah, I'll go to guard force. That was a little bit, like, damn, he's a bitch.
Yeah,
you know, eye opening, just, because again, I'm there to do that, right? Like I enlisted in the infantry in '04. Like at the end of the day, like I'm there to do that. I watched the Battle of Fallujah on TV, wanting to be those Marines, and just like Pruitt said, careful what you wish for. Um, but I was shook, absolutely. Like I don't think there was any way you couldn't be going into this situation. And actually, um, I told myself I'm the baddest motherfucker in the valley. As I fear no evil, as I'm the baddest motherfucker in the valley, as these are the baddest motherfuckers with me, as I am an infantry marine and I fear no evil. Dude, I told myself that over and over and over. Um, I don't know, for a couple weeks, literally, as we're the whole time we're flying out from Lejeune into Ramadi. I wrote that shit down in a notebook over and over until genuinely I was convinced that's what it was. And I guess that was my mental game at that point.
okay.
Um,
Now with that, you guys, uh, you see some of your senior Marines or guys that you've been, I don't know if looking up to them or just knowing that they've been like talking this talk about how they're hard, and they're ready for, whatever. This is what we were doing when I was on deployment. And then you get to this point where it's like, hey, who wants to, now when they say guard force, that's not like an RBE element, like staying back in the States. That would be like, hey, you're going to be essentially just standing post when we get to Ramadi. Is that what guard force is?
Yeah, on like Hurricane Point, like on
Hmm.
the big base where the COC, where the Chamber of Clowns gonna be.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Well, they're gonna stick by that type of thing.
Yeah, so
Um,
and then you see those are the dudes that you're kind of like, all right, and I'm sure that there gets to a point where those dudes probably get, thrown into, some of the platoons because of either casualties or whatever that you guys are taking throughout the
no,
deployment.
uh, no, those guys once they got stuck to headquarters, they'd made it clear that they didn't want to be on a line platoon.
That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, so no, they didn't end up back with us. Some of the boots, that had said that, we didn't see them until we got, or I mean, you'd see them around base occasionally. But actually, one of the boots, I think his name was Lynch. I'm pretty sure that was his name. This kid Lynch, he was from Boston, had this fucking, thick Boston accent. Some people in the platoon or in the company really liked him. We'd gone to SOI together. Wasn't the biggest fan. He started having these nightmares that he was going to die in Ramadi and that he couldn't go on deployment. And it comes out he's kind of a rich kid and he's trying to get his dad to buy his contract out. He's trying to find all these different ways to get out of it. And my roommate, how I said I'd gotten into it with some of my senior Marines, my roommate was his team leader, and I'd gotten into it with him one night, socked him in the mouth while he was drinking. Uh, it didn't take me long to realize in the fleet that the moment your senior Marines started drinking, they lost their powers as senior Marines. So if you were sober and they weren't, and y'all had a physical altercation, they could get in trouble if it went outside of the if it made it out of the platoon, they'd probably get in trouble for it. So, anyways, though,
You knew
so
that
yeah,
was like a little card that you could keep in your back pocket. Like if I'm sober and you're drunk, like we're fisticuffs.
dude, and I would, I'd wait for the, especially this my roommate. I had a problem with him. Waited one night. He'd had a couple of drinks. I got real mouthy with him. He put his hands on me. And it went from there. And he really couldn't do anything about it. But anyways, this kid, my roommate inspired such confidence as a team leader, is how I saw it. This kid's having these nightmares. So Lynch tries to get out of deployment. He can't. This other kid, this buddy of ours that ended up with 3-2, had a hernia, and he didn't deploy because of it. So Lynch realizes maybe if he has a medical issue, so he's trying to give himself a hernia. You can't on
Was
purpose.
he like squeeze like oh like try
He told us he was like trying to lift his buddy's car, and at this point, it's all like funny games, right? Like he's like telling us all this, and it's funny, and he ends up wrapping his ankle in a phone book and having his buddy smash it with a bat, and it shatters his ankle, and he comes up. The morning of deployment, I'm talking like everybody's gears laid out. We pulled weapons from the armory. He's late to formation. See him like pull up. I think he had like a little Mazda 626, a little fancy car, and pulls up. And you see him hop out and he crutches up to first sergeant. We can all hear him in his like retarded Boston accent, and he tells first sergeant that he can't deploy. He broke his ankle. First sergeant's like, bullshit, bitch. We'll get you checked out in Kuwait. Go get your shit. Get in formation.
no way.
Yeah, and he's like, Roger that, first sergeant, in front of
Hmm.
all of us. You know, we watch him crutch over to his car, throw his crutches in the car, and he just drove away.
No shit. What like
Yeah,
yo went like UA or what?
that was it. He went UA. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, and I actually happened to. I was in the chow hall one day in between deployments, and they brought all the brig guys in for lunch. I don't know if they're what, but they bring them in their like orange jumpsuits, and there he is. We make eye contact, and I'm staring him down, and he's just looking at the floor. But
Yeah, like like fucking pussy. All right, so Lynch bitches out of the deployment, goes UA, but you guys hey have everything staged, weapons pulled. You guys get to obviously the transit to Ramadi and how that works getting into Iraq. What's your first day in country like? Because I know some guys have some different experiences. When talking to Jared about Charlie Company, he said that within like 45 minutes of getting to Ramadi, like he was getting it.
it's pretty similar. Um, we get to Ramadi. Our flight in, our helo gets shot up. I don't know anything. We don't know anything. I see some like sparks over me. It looks like fucking dumb boot. Just like, oh, these things work funny.
Yeah.
I know like the burn roll it this way and roll it that way. We're all hanging on, and
What are you guys
you know,
in like a 53 or something? Coming in a 53? The helicopter, like the long dual rotor ones, or is it a black? Okay.
I no, I don't even know. I couldn't. I think it was a 46. I think we were
Oh,
on a single.
okay. Gotcha.
But it's all night flights and everything. But so our bird lands, we get to Camp Ramadi, the bird lands. There's some mortars here and there in Camp Ramadi. You hear the sirens going off occasionally. We're there for a day or three. Um, we get that same brief that Pruitt's talking about, that Black, I think it was their XO doing backflips, during the brief about Ramadi. And as he said, everybody remembers this dude. Um, and we get to Hurricane Point and we go to drive out at Hurricane Point. And at this point, they've got me as a driver of the high back. And we're all 3 minutes down the road. I don't know. I shouldn't even say 3 minutes. We're between Hurricane Point and OP, Virginia, I believe it was. I feel like you could still see HP. And it looks like a bottle rocket or something goes in front of my hood, maybe a Roman candle. And at this point, we don't quite have our SOPs down. So they actually stop because we took contact. And they want, is everybody okay? And, I'm sitting there like, it's okay. What the fuck? I'm like, I fucking sit. Um, and we pull back off. Everybody's fine, basically. And yeah, that's like the first couple minutes into Ramadi. And I'd say, within 24 to 48 hours, everybody has more or less been engaged, been in firefights, type of thing.
Okay. Now is I don't know. I mean, you really don't know what to expect, being a junior or a boot, on your fucking first deployment and, all these things are happening. You get to where you're supposed to be, whatever patrol base that it is that you guys are going to be operating out of. And, you can get a feel for you guys rip out with another unit, and are they telling you the things that they've been experiencing and how that's going down?
We rip out with 3.8 kilo, and we have a little bit of contact with them. We get there, and it's just, dude, there's ammunition everywhere, rockets, weapons everywhere. I'm assuming because of their op tempo, they hadn't really set up comfortably, actually. That was kind of like the first thing we did. Our gunny got us like actual berthing spaces. These dudes, unless I was mistaken, these dudes were like more or less in between shifts and patrols, just sleeping on the floors. I might have missed it, but I don't think they had berthing areas because we opened up a lot of berthing areas. We got there and Gunny made us do, what felt like a lot of bullshit. Um, but at the end of the day, it got us living more comfortable. And he got a little kitchen for us going. There's
Well,
probably stories.
yeah, that stuff right there, I mean, that alone helps with morale. Like if you've got instead of coming back from patrol every single day or doing whatever it is, and you guys are just like an ISO mat on the floor, and maybe now that you've got some like cots or some shit like that, and you could say that
Yeah,
you got a little kitchen, like those things like that, coming back to that makes it a little bit easier than just like, oh, here's another fucking MRE and sleeping on the fucking ground again.
yeah, they managed to shit wooden bunk beds, so we all had bunks. All the berthing areas had ACs. Ours got shot out like day 4 or something, week 1 basically. The backside of the building's taking fire, and some rounds actually come into the berthing while we're in there. We all hit the floor, and Gunny comes running up, and it's just the boots in there, and he's like, "Is everybody okay?" And we're like, "Our AC's shot out." And he's like, "Shut the fuck up!" Like the third time, "Is everybody okay?" And we're like, "Yeah, Gunny, but like our AC, I didn't fucking it," type of thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
And you're like, sweet, this is week one into a summer deployment and our AC is fucking shot to shit.
well, it was actually the end of winter, so we
Oh,
get
okay, okay.
end of summer, so we get there and it's balls hot still. And then the temperature drops, and we're there for the Iraqi winter. So, it probably hovers around 35, 40 for a lot of the time. We're freezing our asses off on post. One day I fucking busted my ass on some ice. I was pretty pissed about that. Um,
And that's the funny thing because I think a lot of people don't understand when you say like Iraq or Afghanistan, they don't think that like winter time, those winter months can be too bad, but anybody that's been there knows that it gets pretty fucking brutal.
Yeah, man, we spent a lot of time cold on post. We were taking 50 cal rounds apart and lighting those. If you light the black powder up with a little bit of hand sanitizer, you'll get like a pretty clean little flame. You can like a little sterno almost.
No
Um,
way, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, MRE heaters, keeping those like under your in between your layers, because we didn't really deploy with true cold weather gear, because it's not truly cold, right? Like we're not dealing with cold injuries, but it doesn't mean you're not fucking uncomfortable some of the time.
Definitely. So you guys get established, you got your birthing set up, you guys are, in a pretty, kinetic environment. What's your up tempo like in terms of how often you guys are going on patrol every single day?
I don't know what our senior are, not our seniors are. The Gulf Center is a pretty big building. So more or less, our first month, we worked 6 on 6. We stood post, and um, I think it was set up as one platoon's like on post rotation, and one platoon was on patrols, and one platoon was on VIX type of thing.
Like
I think
QRF, like setting up a QRF or something?
yeah, but
Yeah.
also supplies, right? Because how much ammo are we going through daily? How much, all this. So if you're on post, we were running post 6 on 6 off, 6 on 6 off, and that's what it was. That was brutal. To the point where hallucinating. I feel like you're like half falling asleep on post, and you're like half seeing things. It was absolutely brutal because you most of the time you get in a gunfight on post, right? You get in a firefight, so we come off post. You have to clean weapons a lot of times. You got to eat. You're gonna want to read mail or write some letters or like talk with the boys, right? It's not like you actually come off and you get 6 hours of sleep. You come off, you got all this to do at first, and you got to be on post 15 early. You got to be at brief. If you break it down, it's really like 3 or 4 off at a time, and then in between that, we might be running QRFs, or we might be on the VIX to go get my squad. We were vehicles. So we're on QRF. We're not on foot patrol. We're sitting by when our foot patrols are out. Um, we're QRF for the other OPs for anything like that, and we're also bringing back resupplies up
Yeah,
and
I was
down.
I was gonna say that resupply aspect because Pruitt was saying that you guys basically every single day, if not every other day, are having to do resupplies, and I assume that that's everything from linked ammo to stripper clips of 5.56, 40 millimeter frag grenades, rockets, the whole nine yards.
We shot a lot of fucking rockets. Our small gunners, like those dudes need to be checked for TBI again and again. I think after 10 or 13 smalls in a day, they consider you combat ineffective due to
Yep,
concussion.
yep.
Something like
I
that. And
think
we got
I honestly I think I want to say that it's less than that. I think it's five. If you shoot five small, I think that's the training. Um, I don't know. It could be something different, but I know when we would go and even when we were shooting rockets, it was like you were alternating who was fucking shooting a rocket if it was, applicable.
now we got small gunners at times shooting double digits into rockets a day. Just so we're getting resupplies for everything. We're constantly running back and forth, which in its own is, there's time. We're getting in firefights doing that, hitting IEDs. Fortunately for us, that area of Ramadi is so heavily patrolled, so much traffic. The IEDs were generally smaller. There's tons of them, but a lot of times, they're mortars, and they can't dig them in. They just don't have that much time. So it's generally a single round, maybe on the side of you, not so much, not always that I hit in my trucks. We have KIA. We had catastrophic KIA trucks, but generally for us, it was smaller IEDs, so we're hitting them all the time. But because everything's so busy, like you see them a lot of times, like you see them, and it's just like, oh, thaw, and you get like rocked. You can smell your hair sometimes.
No
Um,
shit. So would you say that this was maybe not an everyday occurrence, but like at least once a week, like you might be getting, and I don't know, what are the size of these mortar rounds that they're
The other day type of more or less every time we take the trucks out, one of the vehicles is potentially gonna hit either an IED or an explosion type of thing. If we're sitting when we're sitting doing resupplies, we used to do what we called the RPG dance. The trucks are constantly moving and we'd hit each other because of it. He's in reverse, I'm in gear. But because if you just sat there, you're a target, right?
right, right.
And we'd be on the hooks with each other. Everything's a joke at the same time. Like we're on the hooks with each other. Like, look at him dance, look at that fool dance, and I'm a
Yeah,
moving, I'm moving,
yeah,
get out of the way. Ah, we hit each other type of stuff. And
yeah.
but and like I said, generally, and we're to the floor. We're doing 60 miles an hour every bit we can. Um, oh no, my phone just said I'm at 20% battery, and I'm looking around to see if I got a iPhone charger. We'll see how much longer this lasts.
No, we'll be okay. We'll get into it, and like I said, we can um reconvene at any point in time. So let's at least try to get through Ramadi and then coming home from Ramadi and what that was like, you know. So you guys get there towards the end of the summer. You're going through the winter deployment. What's like your first I'm not trying to get you, but like your first I don't want to call it taste, like your first experience with loss in Ramadi, like that you personally experienced.
Um, Lance Corporal Ryan McCon, I think was the first person that we lost that was not just somebody that I knew that I had crossed paths with. But I don't quite think we were rack mates in SOI. Our racks were right near each other. We were good friends. We're both from New England, both on that kind of punk rock. Really into that Irish Boston music, that flogging mollies and dropkick Murphys. And yeah, when we lost McCon, dad hit home. And we were constantly in what our term for it was River City.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, we weren't allowed to use any outgoing until a family had been notified. We couldn't use phone. We couldn't use, and that had hit twice as hard. Like we don't get back to Camp Ramadi often at all, and they wouldn't want to let us in the chow halls or the phone booths. We'd have to argue at times because we're filthy, right? We're they don't want to let us in. We smell. Um, so to get to Hurricane Point, which is all that's 1-6, we got no problems there. But to get to Hurricane Point and we're in River City and you want to bitch that we're in River City, like what the fuck? And then it hits you twice as hard, right? Like I want to be mad that we're in River City that I can't call home, but we're waiting on that call for somebody's home.
right,
So
right, exactly. And it's one of those things where um you think to yourself, you're like kind of ashamed of yourself or upset with yourself for getting mad that like, oh, what the fuck? Like I can't call home and you know, somebody's family is gonna get notified that their son's been killed in combat, so um you think
really wounded, but yeah, it's a terrible situation. And like you said, it's this like double guilt. It hits, twice.
yeah, now when I always try to ask everybody because some people may have experienced some things differently in the terms of how you're coping with those losses, whether it be somebody that was killed in action or somebody that was wounded. A good buddy that may have gotten hit by an IED or gunshot wound, and you're like not wondering if that person's gonna make it, like they're gonna get heloed out or they're gonna get trucked out or whatever. Are they gonna make it to, the surgeon in time, whatever it may be. Um, how is that affecting you and your squad? Like what you directly saw when you guys took losses like that?
When you ask how does that directly affect what we saw? Now we've got all this craziness going around us and casualties as 1-6. As Bravo, we've got all this craziness going on around us. We're in daily firefights, the IEDs, all of it. Bravo took no KIA on that deployment. And we actually had very few casualties also through all that fighting. We did have a couple casualties, one of the famous firefights from OP Haria. they initiated with this V bed. They were dropping mortars, and one of the mortars blew out a wall in the COC, and it sent this I think corporal at the time, Gaydon, into cardiac arrest. And basically we fought our way into OP Haria to get him, and we fought our way back out of there to get him out. Um, but in terms of the loss as a unit that we're taking, that's going on in this city as a whole, man, we're there to fight. Basically, like, we're getting bloodied, but like, we're there to come at you. That's it at the end of the day. Like, right, we're infantry marines. We signed
Right.
up to
So
this.
with that then, do you think that when, it comes over the hook or you guys get the word passed that like so and so whatever platoon or whatever company took a KIA or you guys are, take a casualty, is this more, I'm trying to gauge the side of, is it a detrimental impact where you guys feel that you need to slow your op tempo, or you guys like, want to get out there chomping at the bit to get some payback for what had just happened?
Um, that initial word comes through, and I feel like we'd all, you'd have a moment, and you kind of know who's closer with that person or who's not, and how some people might take it, right? But like, I think at the end of it, man, we're like 19, 20 years old, and what's our option basically? Like, to pick up our rifles and fight. We don't, we either way, we got to go back out there. That's not an option.
Right.
So, basically like, we just got bloodied, and we want revenge. We want to fight. We want to make our enemy pay just as much as they want to do to us.
Okay.
Um,
Now through this deployment in Ramadi, are there notable mentions of, something that happens that sticks with you today? Whether it be a moment of positivity, or you seeing like a act of, selflessness and courageousness, or something that was like, and again, I don't want you to have to divulge like intimate, traumatic, stuff that still wrestle with to this day. But if there's something that, you've worked through, maybe an impactful moment that happened on that deployment.
there's a so Thanksgiving Day 2006. It amazes me their ability to engage multiple pieces of not just 1-6, but there's multiple infantry units in Ramadi, Army and Marine Corps. So their ability to engage Alpha, Bravo, just 1-6, is really impressive. So on in Thanksgiving 2006, we have PID on the fishermen. You hear Pruitt talk about the fishermen. We have PID of the fishermen. We're mostly set up to be standing post at that moment, so we whip together two squads into one real quick, mixed together, and basically we hit the gate running. And Bravo, probably some of the reason we had taken less KIA, we had slowed our op tempo a little bit. We don't go outside during the day. We go out at night, set up, and then work business during the day. But we don't patrol. We don't do foot patrols during the day. So this is mine, and I think the rest of ours basically first time outside the wire during the day, right? Little different. We hit the ground running. There's a couple considerable just standout. Um, McGee, one of our senior Marines, he trips in some rubble and, goes face first, comes down. He comes up, his fingers dislocated, and he's got a bloody lip. And, Doc Sanchez runs up next to him, and they're on their run. And Doc Sanchez snaps his finger back into place. He like looks at it, shakes it off, and just sprints out, just like, yo, that's what we're about type of thing. Um, and then so we missed the fishermen, obviously, predictably, right? Like, we're a day late, dollar short. And our higher ups are like, hey, well, you guys are out there, why don't you clear some buildings? Like, that's a fucking terrible idea. Um, so we go clear pretty tall building, booting doors and everything. And by the time we come back out, it's absolute ghost town. There was a working city when we went in, it's a ghost town when we come out. So let's get it,
And I think, yeah, when you say that, like, it's a tale as old as time when you come into a situation like that where previously it was bustling and then now it's nobody's around. Like, the hair on the back of your neck stands up and you're ready to rock and roll.
we know what's coming. You know what it is. Um, and two dudes, more or less two dudes pull up on a moped or something. I think our LT says shoot them. And our point man, is a little hesitant, and he's like fucking shoot type of thing. I think our point man starts popping a couple shots as they pull off. He's missing them. Um, and more or less, it's on from there. Our point man, we try to cross the street. Our point man just comes under, massive automatic and RPG. And he's actually running around back and forth. He doesn't know which way to go. Should he other side? Should he come back? Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. And this kid, Lynham, another Boston kid, steps out. He steps out from the side of the road, and we got the parasaws with the little nut sacks on them. I think it was 50 rounds in the nut sacks. He steps out with the parasaw and just cuts a 50-round burst out of it. Doesn't let up. Completely exposes himself and doesn't let off the trigger until Plock is like back under cover.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and basically from there, it's just a heavy run and gun fight back and forth. We realize, they've effectively got us contained into one block, basically. We feel like we can't break either side. Um, we go firm in a building. We're counting out ammo, and we're all pretty short on magazines, 3, 4 magazines. Our senior Marines with their 203s, they've been actually picking their own shrapnel out of them. We're so closely engaged. They're catching shrapnel from their own 203s.
Damn.
Um, yeah. Um, so we're laid up in this building. We've gone firm. We're trying to make a plan, and we call fixed wing. And you don't get it too often in the city at this point. And we're like face down. It's danger close, 300 or less. Like this is really, it's danger close for sure. And we're like heads down, our fingers in our ears, and we hear the jet, and we hear like a minor explosion, and we're like, that must have been for Alpha Company or something. And then we hear like the afterburners kind of leaving, and we're like, what the fuck? And our radio man comes over, Mathis, and he's like, hey, be advised, right building, wrong grid, but they're coming back for us. And like a second later, he's just like, hey, they're not coming back. They got turned down after hitting the wrong building. So that's like kind of a heartbreak right there. Like, yo, we didn't call that shit because we didn't need it. Um, and then they tell us they're going to send gun trucks for us, but they can't send them back to where we're at. That's, too big of a risk. So we got to fight our way to gun trucks. And basically, we all got this feeling of like, if we could have fucking fought our way to the gun trucks on Michigan, we could have got back to OP Haria. They haven't told us, though, that Haria is so heavily engaged, we can't get back to Haria, that we are actually cut off. Um, so they send the gun trucks. We hear, more or less, we hear the gun trucks just, open up shop as soon as they get in. You hear that heavy gun starting to go. They're heavily engaging and engaged. And at that point, as we roll out of that building, I feel like, more or less you feel safe, you feel all that. And it's kind of quiet in our sector. You hear our gun trucks raging, and man, our point man rolls out at that point. Different point man, though. At this point, it's the one that had fallen. McGee rolls out of the building, and there's just an explosion of gunfire. The moment he steps out, you hear an explosion of AK, of automatic fire, and you hear his M16 just right back. And every Marine after that, as they follow him out, same thing. You just hear this nonstop gunfire, and man, it's crazy. But in some ways, I'd say that I actually feel like I was reborn that moment. It just came out a different person, because at that point, this was not, fun and games. This wasn't. We were fighting for our lives. We were low on ammo. This shit was absolutely serious. We were not behind our bulletproof glass in our post. We weren't in our up armored Humvees with our heavy guns. We were running and gunning, and we were cut off. And we managed to fight our way back to gun trucks, right? Like, you put Marines in a bad position and we'll work it out. We managed to fight our way back to the gun trucks. And you see us in the videos, which I always think is crazy that we have videos to all this stuff, or some of it. You see the video from OP Haria. You see us starting to come out. The video from the gun trucks, from the squad that came and pulled us out, they got video from it, and none of us on the ground have any video rolling, because,
Yeah, you
we
don't have the ability to do so, dude. You're fucking this is 2006. You guys don't have sweet fucking GoPros. You got some dude with like a big ass handheld camera.
We've got digital cameras, and like yeah, they work on post, they work in gun trucks, but yeah, when you're running and gunning, we got nothing like that. So yeah, man, we get back to the Gov Center. We actually at OP area was too heavily engaged. We make probably about a mile run in all our gear. And I swear to you, man, when I hit Michigan, when that first gun truck I got in between, when I took off on a full sprint, I would have passed Michael Johnson, man. We're out.
Yeah, you're just full sprint.
Full sprint, dude. We ain't got no ammo left, right? We're light. I think I had 2 magazines or something, and we're stepping out in Ramadi with 12, 13 magazines type of thing. Our saw gunners are stepping out with 1,200 rounds. We got backpacks with our team leaders, 203s, and loose magazines and extra link in there. And yeah, so that was pretty crazy. And shortly after that, and actually, right after that, I had to have my ears drained of blood and mucus from all the RPGs, explosions, whichever. I had gotten a problem with my ears real bad. They'd gotten really painful, and I had to go get them drained at HP. And I actually didn't remember any of it. And I was photocopying my medical records that I was getting out, and I came across this paper, and I was like, "What the fuck? This and I started to think about it in a little bit, and it started to come back. Had I not read that, though, had I not been photocopying my medical record,
Yeah, you
I
wouldn't have any, wouldn't have remembered being involved in doing that. Um, Shit, that sounds like a wild ass day. I know there's plenty of people that have had experiences like that, just in Ramadi alone. That's a wild place to be, especially at those times. Um, when you guys get to, because Pruitt talks about you guys get to a certain part of the deployment, maybe like a month left, where you can notice a legitimate shift in the environment, right? Like you see civilians starting to come back into the city. You guys aren't getting engaged as often. There's a definite lull in the fighting. Did you take notice to that as well?
Well, for myself, a little bit after Thanksgiving, early December, myself and 7 other Marines from the unit throughout different companies get moved out to the police station, voluntold to the West Ramadi police station. So right there, I have a crazy op tempo change. I go from being with my boys that I have been with, some of which since boot camp, to only a couple other Marines that I even know from the unit, one of which I end up being super close with. Man, I don't know how I would have got through that part of the deployment without Aaron Oldham. Um, and so things immediately change right there. And we're still thugging a bit. We're still getting in some firefights, but it's just not the same. Not everything's different. We're there to train the police officers. We're not quite in the center of the city, and that's completely different. They got a taste of what Marines were like in general. One of my senior Marines and myself, we've been there a couple days. We get into an argument. Now there's nobody around, and me and him, like hockey players, man, we got each other by the shirts, just giving each other lawnmowers in front of all the IPs until I don't even know if they broke it up or if we'd had enough of each other, or what.
So
But
you're showing the Iraqis how things are laid out between two Marines.
dude, let them know, like, yeah, man, we fight each other. We'll fight you. Like, any of y'all could get the hands just like this.
So
Um,
what was it though that you know, I don't want to say did they just like randomly grab people, or was it something that qualified you to do this, or I'm trying to
and
think of like a type of training. They just grabbed like 8 dudes and they're like, you guys are going to the police station.
well, that was a whole other thing, bro. It crushed me going to the police station. I thought that I got selected to go voluntold because I'd gotten in some trouble here and there in the unit. I got a DUI. And I actually thought I got sent because I got in trouble, and that shit crushed me. It was really hard to deal with getting removed from my boys. And now technically we're part of headquarters, so I felt like I was part of that guard unit, basically. Like, again, it was really hard for me to deal with. And then at our unit reunion, the Semper Fi Foundation threw a unit reunion for us. That was crazy. That's a whole other story. I'll keep it pretty short. But that came up between myself and my squad leader, one of my senior Marines. And he was like, "Man, you have no idea how sad we were to lose you. We tried everything to keep you. We tried to get them to give you this dude and that dude." And they were like, he said that, like, they wanted me because I was a good Marine, and I do look like them. And I had a handle on Arabic already. And this, for dude, you're talking almost, I think, 15 years. I thought I'd been sent there as punishment. And to hear like my squad leader say like how bummed he was to lose me, like that really, that was some healing for me, you
Yeah,
know?
definitely, definitely. I had similar. Well, I was gonna get taken from my platoon. I had this like gnarly plantar wart on my foot, right? This is on my first deployment, and I had to get it cut out because it just like grew. It was like painful as fuck. So I get my corpsman cut it out, and they're like, "All right, hey, well your foot heals. We're gonna put you on guard duty." And I was like, "Absolutely not!" Like I was like, I complained about it. I bitched about it. I threw a fucking temper tantrum. Long story short, I didn't have to stand guard duty, so that was, I was like, I don't care, I'll do it. I ended up standing in the turret for a little while, in one of the Mat Vs, so that was nice, because I was like, I'm not staying inside, I'm not staying inside the wire, dude. I'm not standing guard. I'm not doing
You
it.
know that rotation either,
Yeah,
you know.
and they just had such a shitty schedule, and they were just like Monday, like you'd even have to go down to the detainee center and like sit there with all these dudes you got caught playing IEDs or whatever it may be. I was like, nah, I'm not about that life. So luckily I didn't have to do that. But when you're in a position where thinking that you're going to get taken away from your platoon, whether it may be a reason why you're a solid Marine or they need somebody that has a handle on whatever it may be, it's still a blow that's like, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to get taken away from their platoon.
It was yeah, so that immediately changed the op tempo, though. That messed with my head a bit. One of it, and it works out that one of the Marines that I've become best friends with, was there, and that really helped. And yeah, so that changed the op tempo a bit, and I kind of say, all of a sudden, like that scene in Forrest Gump where he's like, in one day it just stopped raining. That's basically like in one day they just stopped shooting at us. Like, I just remember kind of like looking around late in the spring when it's really starting to warm up and just been like, damn, I haven't heard any shots fired in a while. It's been a while since I've been engaged, since like my Iraqi police officers have really been engaged. Sometimes I would go out on patrols with them and get in gunfights with them, which was, a whole other wild, like, and sometimes I'd have to check myself and be like, dude, you ain't, back up. There's no need to go get to the front of that. Um, but yeah, you noticed a huge, do I still got you? It just said I got
Yep.
10%.
Yeah, you're good. We're still good. So you notice a huge change in the environment in the terms of how you guys were being engaged and what the even the Iraqi police, because you think that that's like a an easier target. So maybe when they go out, you'd think like, oh, these guys would get engaged every time they go out, and even now they're not really getting it.
Well, the Iraqi police, that's a whole other crazy thing because we just paid them off to work for us. So the most of the insurgents that are still attacking us, they know them. And there's times where they're actually on the hooks with them, talking shit to each other. They might only be, a half mile or 2 miles away, just in a separate part of the city. So there was a lot of craziness to working with the IPs like that. A little bit of insight you would never expect, and also just a little bit about their culture and how quick they are to shoot at each other. Like they thought it was crazy that me and dude would throw hands, but they might have a dispute with their neighbor, go inside and dump an AK mag at his house while his kids are playing outside, type of stuff. Just
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna hop up and see if I got my cord in my car.
Yeah, do your thing, bro. We'll take a quick tactical pause. All right, we took a little break there. We're back with Devin, talking about Ramadi, and at the point in time when, you kind of notice like, oh shit, no one's really shooting at us anymore. We're not getting engaged. Even the IPs, and I think that then another thing you got to think about when you're tasked with, kind of doing this training mission with the Iraqi police, that you're living in this Iraqi police station with 100 plus Iraqi police officers, and it's you and seven other Marines. It's 80 you guys. So you're in these living quarters with these dudes, and that insider threat, that blue on green type of thing, is that something that's in the back of your heads? Are they being telling you guys like, hey, make sure you're being aware of some of these Iraqi police officers? Some of them could be AQ. Like, what kind of stuff are you guys getting told?
We get there and there's definitely that. And we would actually have them tell us, Mister, I used to be Alibaba, but I'm a good guy now. I'm friends with the Americans. We'd have them tell us crazy stuff like that. And basically, so we first get there and they actually gave us second chance vest, the like handgun vest that cops used to wear before they got,
Yeah, like
like
soft armor shit, right? That you guys would wear. Yeah.
they gave us soft armor. And then I don't think we necessarily told our higher ups, but we made the Iraqis give us Glocks. We made them give up 8 Glocks. And at first we're all walking around in a second chance vest with a Glock in our waistband.
And
We
that
have
and
that.
that's obviously while you guys are like inside the police station. You're not like going on fucking patrol with soft armor and a Glock like some fucking Green Beret shit or something.
No, that's like we're standing post, or not even standing post. I'd like standing radios next to them, going about our daily lives with them. I'm supposed to be an armorer, right? Like supposedly, I guess I'm supposed to tell this like these two 40-year-old men how to run their police station armory. While I have no concept of how to run an armory, I'm a 19-year-old infantry marine. Um, and I'm supposed to be logging all these weapons and keeping a log and figuring out all this, taking serial numbers and really organizing like all this stuff. And yeah,
Yeah, and that's quite the task to take on in terms of responsibility at a young age. Like being responsible for something that could be pretty detrimental in terms of either losing a rifle or somebody taking one and using it to shoot up a bunch of people inside an Iraqi police station. When you guys start to the op tempo slows down and you know that you're going to be doing like the left seat, right seat thing, the other units coming in to rip with you guys. What's that like when you know that you're on the downhill slope or like the back nine, and you're on your way to being ready to go home?
um, hold on, man. Let's pause this. I'm almost into this email and I'll be able to keep going
Okay.
uh, without losing you. So,
All right, guys, we had to take a quick break again and get a couple things squared away here. We left off. Devin was talking about being in the Iraqi police station and kind of transitioning to this different job where they're training the Iraqi police, working with the Iraqi police, wearing soft armor, carrying Glocks in their waistbands, a little bit different than, your everyday foot patrol lifestyle. Responsible for like the armory of all these, 100 plus Iraqi police officers and, maintaining responsibility with logging numbers and serialized numbers and everything for these firearms. So you said you got a story that you always try to talk about when you're talking about the Iraqi police station. So go ahead and start it off, Devin.
yeah, I got a couple different ones. Generally, when I tell stories in general, I try to keep them fairly lighthearted or just funny stuff. Um, so one day, wandering around the police station, trying to find the fuck of any of them to do whatever project it is I need to get done or training, whatever. I can't find any of them. And finally, we have separate groups. And finally, like, man, they must all be in their birthing areas. Like, I'm not really supposed to go in there. It's kind of an unwritten type of thing. I'm not really supposed to go in there though. So finally, I'm like, right, well, I gotta find them. That's probably where they're at. They're probably all, and I go in and I first, it's kind of dark in there. It's hard to see at first. Um, and in the center, they kind of got three Iraqi bunk beds pushed together. So there's three racks like up together, and like I can see them up top. And that, like, I realized they're having a fucking circle jerk. And at this moment at 19, like I'm about to have to tell a bunch of grown ass men to put their dicks away and to go back to work. Like,
You mean you didn't join in? You just told them to stop?
it wasn't Thursday, man. I couldn't join.
Oh, that's funny. Only on field day.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, just so different. about in so many different ways. One pretty serious one though. Um, I'm sitting there on the radios. I think more or less all the other Marines are out of the police station. I'm on the radios, and the Army sergeant. So our compound, it's kind of a compound, and there's an Army unit, whatever they do, kind of on the other end. They're not in our daily affairs. We don't see them much, but we interact with them enough. Sometimes we go get some decent chow from them. And this Army sergeant, it's his National Guard unit, comes running in. And he's like, "You don't fucking hear that, basically? Like, I mean, I hear something going on out there, but no, not really." And he's like, like they just shot each other or something. Like, we gotta fucking get out there. Like, grab your body armor and your M16 for me to be like, "Dude, I don't know how y'all do in the Army, but like, I'm on the radio. It's like, I can't leave these, for him to tell me, like, shut the fuck up and let's go." Like, all right, roger that. I go running out there with them, and there's three shot Iraqi police officers holding their legs, their groin type of thing, rolling around, on the ground, bitching. And there's an Iraqi police colonel and his PSD, and some of our Iraqis in a Mexican standoff, AKs all drawn on each other. There's already shot people on the ground. And myself and this Army sergeant kind of run right into all of it. And now, so I'm standing with my IPs shoulder to shoulder, basically we're drawn on these IPs from the other side of the city, all pointing AKs and M16s at each other. And I'm half the slack out of I'm all the slack out of my safety, and like, half the slack out of my trigger. Just standing there thinking like, dude, everybody's about to fucking get it. And this dude in front of me is definitely getting it, type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and more or less at that moment, the other Marines drive, they pull in, and the gun trucks pulling in, just all of it kind of breaks the tension for a second, and they're obviously at this point heavily outgunned now that there's more, Americans here.
Yeah, that and they're
And
looking down the barrel of a 50 caliber, a 240. That's probably not the best decision to make at that point in time.
and what it was, come to find out, um, that colonel, we were talking about trust. And so at this point, we've really begun to trust our police officers. And some of the trust is just genuinely knowing that they know if anything happens to us, if we don't answer our radios for long enough, the aftermath, the hell that is going to come down on them, is some of what has started to provide us some peace. But we're really worried about other Iraqi police officers potentially being insurgents and slipping through and then attacking us or our police officers.
Right,
So
right.
we're
That's
really diligent about that. Anybody that comes in has to get searched. Um, and more or less, our police officers told this colonel he's got to get searched. And he told them that they're Jundi, they're just privates. You can't search me. I'm a colonel. You're privates. You can't search me. And they tell them, the Americans say, and they go back and forth a couple times. We don't know the backstory. For all we know, these guys already knew each other and had problems.
right.
But he tells them you're not going to search me. They say it, a third time. He pulls his Glock out and shoots each one, and shoots the three of them one time in the leg each. Um, like from an American standpoint, can you picture an American police officer or an American colonel shooting three, lower ranking individuals over, an argument?
Right.
Um, and then to show the situation of Iraq as a private, as a PFC, I can see what the future of Iraq is going to be basically in today. What happened at this moment, I could have predicted the entire rest of the country's next 10 years. So that colonel was there for a big meeting. We used to have them, I think, every third week or once a month
Like a
type of time frame.
Shura or a KLE or some shit like that.
Yeah, and all the Iraqi colonels and police officers and IA, big wigs had come out. Our big wigs had come out. And we'd set like all kinds of extra security. And, we're sitting up on the roofs with the 240s and the AT4s, nothing's going to happen.
Well, okay,
And
so at
so
this point in time when you guys are getting here, is this already after you've seen a lull in the fighting from what you've been
it
experiencing from
start
the start?
it
Yeah.
started to die down a bit when this incident happens, and so they go on with the plan of the day. Like this dude didn't just shoot three people, and they have this big meeting, and they invite him into it as they would have if this incident hadn't just happened. And right around the end of it, his secretary, his scribe, whatever they'd call him, his little bitch, comes up and he's like, they're gonna kill him. We're like, yeah, probably. You probably shouldn't have. And he's like, no, no, they're gonna kill him. When he, steps out of those doors when this meeting's open, your police officers are gonna kill him, in front of everybody, type of thing. Like, oh, we can't have that. That's a big problem. So we actually we put him in the middle of us and walked him out, put a circle around him and walked him out. Our police officers had pushed his PSD off the property. And we had to escort him out to his PSD. And while we're doing that, like the Iraqis generally are, a little smaller than the Americans, right? Like, he's having to like jump over us and he's talking shit. He's basically, however you want to look at it, it's tribal warfare, or he's basically flashing gang signs type of thing, but he's telling them, come over to our side of the city and we'll kill all you or whatever. It's basically, um,
Yeah, and you can see that right there, like how you said that it kind of gives you an insight on the progress that's going to be made or how things are going to play out down the road. And if you have infighting like that over things such as searching somebody before they come onto your compound, you can only imagine what it's going to be like when, they start butting heads like out in the city. I mean, if they're shooting each other on base, imagine, because that was the thing that I remember, hearing guys talk about in Iraq is especially when building target packages, you really have to figure out like, is this person genuine in the intel that they're giving us, or is it because that there's some tribal or family rivalry and they're like, fuck this guy, I'm just going to tell the Americans that he's the one hiding of weapons of mass destruction and they're going to go fucking
yeah,
bring
he's got the
SEALs.
WMDs
Yeah,
yelling
yeah,
where they're in
like
his
yeah,
basement.
they're like, yes, they're all Saddam brought all the WMDs to this guy's basement. That's why you guys have not found them yet. And shit like that. It's so, I think that's an important thing to bring up and talk about, especially being on that lower enlisted level. Not that you're a fucking stupid dude, but being that boot PFC on your first deployment or whatever, and you're witnessing these things, and you're like, well, this isn't going to go very well moving forward in the future. And if you can see that, it's like, how did these political entities and like the higher ranking officers and all these things like not see those things, or did they? And did they just brush it off as it was like, well, maybe we'll fucking figure it out in a couple of years?
I mean, not to get, hugely deep into politics in
Yeah, no, no,
general, but
and
at that,
that's not what I want, brother. Like I'm not, but
yeah,
it gets those wheels churning and makes you think on how it was not picked up on way earlier in the game.
this was at this point, it's '07. So we're tailing towards Iraq, really starting to slow down. Um, and yeah, political end game. I'm not thinking what's the political end game. I'm 19 years old, but I can tell you how it's gonna go. It doesn't take a degree or anything like that to essentially just be like, yo, this is a fucked situation. When we leave, there's going to be a power vacuum. There's tons of weapons in this country, and they're set to fight. There's going to be a civil war. What's our plan? I have no idea. But, that writing from a 19-year-old PFC, that writing was on the wall, and I could read it.
That's crazy. I think anybody that's been in our shoes before, whether it be Iraq or Afghanistan, and there's correlating things to that prove this now that we've, had a few years since then. It's just wild to see that it took so long for nobody to do anything really about the things that were like right in front of our faces. Um, so, if there's anything that you can think of that's notable from that Iraq deployment after obviously you've been with Bravo, going out and doing your thing, get shifted over to the police station, you're working with the IPs, in that area of Ramadi, or just right outside the city, right? Like you guys are a little bit
Still in
outside.
the city
Yeah,
by an AO standard, but comparatively to, being in the center at the Gov Center, Opie Haria,
Right.
up in some of those real famous areas. We're a little bit removed. Like I said, we're still taking a little bit of firefights, and the building gets attacked occasionally, but not yeah.
Yes.
I'm feeling pretty safe. I'm not, on a daily so worried about my own safety, I'd say at that.
Okay. So, obviously there's like a point on this deployment where it really does become noticeable that the fighting in Ramadi has really died down, and that's when the civilians start coming back in, and you see, the everyday life kind of take that normal life comes back into the city.
Yeah, and we're, suddenly we're going out on patrols during the day to hand out sugar and flour, whatever, blankets or whatever BS, and again, you got to watch what they're telling you because really they're like, they make out this whole patrol route, but all the IPs live in more or less the same apartment complex. So we just went and handed all this stuff to their, we didn't actually do anything for the
Yeah, yeah,
populace.
yeah. They're like, let's go this way over to this house, and we'll give these people. It's like, yes, I will have a nice warm blanket tonight when I sleep. Nice new
So,
blanket. Um,
um,
so you guys you do this kind of hearts and minds more so instead of, two to the chest, one to the head, you're doing hearts and minds in the point of giving out some I don't know what
yeah,
the right coinage term is, like some basic necessities to the Iraqi people, just to that like normal everyday life.
little BS. We're picking up trash now. Like all of a sudden, like every trash pile you would have never touched because it's probably an IED. Like we're trying to get the IPs. We're not trying to pick up trash, right? I'm trying to stand, act like I'm standing guard on the IPs or something. But we're out there trying to beautify their neighborhoods when like the reality is like, there's sea wire everywhere, and y'all haven't had trash service since what, 03, 02 or something. When was the last time y'all had a trash truck come? So you probably know how it is. All the sea wire, when the wind blows, all the garbage just blows into the sea wire. And um, but yeah, just a completely different op tempo change. I think one of the things that has to do with it, they killed Colonel Salah, the insurgents, and he was loved by the Iraqis. We worked with him. I can remember that day quite clearly. I think it was somewhere around Valentine's Day, 2007. Pretty brutal day as a whole. We did a big triage out of our police station for the civilians that were injured also. His son was in there, drunk and cussing us all out. Pretty intense. His son watched, it was maybe in the vehicle behind him or something, but saw his father get blown up. Um,
IED or VBID?
Bed, I believe. I'm pretty sure they rammed him, really. And I think that really changed the tempo of Ramadi because he was a local, and he was really loved in that city. So when the insurgents did that, I think it set a big gap between the ones that had come to that city to fight and the ones that were local that had been fighting us. And I think the locals were just over it. They're starting to come back, and this happens then. And I think they just stopped supporting the insurgency.
Yeah, and that's obviously got to be a huge turning tide because if you don't have the local population and like the military age males that are willing to fight because of something like that, then that, obviously, you've explained this is the fact that they kind of take a step back from that and be like, okay, this hits a different way and we don't want any part of this. So, the culminating deployment finishes up. You guys head back home, and how is that? I mean, able to switch it on, switch it off, or are you coming home and your mindset in terms of like your awareness to things like that's completely shifted, right? Like you're a whole new person.
Yeah, man. I have no ability to really switch it off, basically. I'd like to think, at the time that I thought that I could or did or something, Um, and it was pretty different, I guess I'd say, because I was still 19. Like I've been out of high school for 2 years. My birthday's in June, and we came home, I think, in May. So I actually turned 20 on leave, and I had just come home. But trying to wrap my mind around, and no fault of my friends, they weren't doing anything wrong by still working at the same gas station or still flipping burgers at the same place, right? Like, but I had just had this crazy life experience. And in some ways, my friends that were working those jobs, right? Like they're kind of doing what you're supposed to be and they got their heads straight. So almost I'm back to running around with my knucklehead friends that are off during the day, right? Like who else am I gonna hang out with on leave that's kicking it in the middle of the day on a Tuesday?
Okay, so
Um
let me ask you this then. When you come back, you're on leave, you turn 20 years old. Um, part of me wants to think that you've got this feeling like you're on top of the world, like you just came back from one of the most deadliest places. Like nothing can hurt me. Like fuck the world, fuck the system, fuck points of authority that want to tell me what to do. What's it like? I mean, obviously being a good infantry marine, I would assume that alcohol is still a part of your pretty much everyday life. But now, looking back on it, did you see a definite shift in the consumption level and the
um
reasons why?
actually I came back pretty locked on. They put me into a team leader role still as a PFC. So I was at a lot of the times not drinking a lot. I'd gotten a DUI before I left. So I was actually really trying to be squared away. And I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't drink. I'm just saying, on terms of consumption, I might have been drinking less than I
Okay.
was before my
Okay.
deployment because I was really trying to be squared away.
Well,
Um,
with that being said, then was there, excuse me, were there things that you were struggling with when you first came home then? Like it doesn't sound like alcohol might have been a big problem, but looking back on it, do you think that there's ways that you were struggling to adapt or struggling to adjust or fit in with your friends, your family? And
well,
if so, how did you cope with that?
my best friend that I grew up with, we're still good friends. I've lived with him on and off, and yeah, man, that dude's awesome. I came home from my deployment, right, and you spent 9 months in Ramadi avoiding open windows, doorways, everything. The sniper threat's so serious. So I wouldn't go near a doorway, or I wouldn't silhouette myself in a window when I came home. And dude, my best friend, made me stand in front of a window. He's like, "We're fucking stateside. Ain't nobody out there gonna shoot you. Quit the bullshit, basically. Like, get your fucking head right, man." Um, some people might say that's messed up, or that ain't how you do things, or which, but I do think that helped me. Somebody being like your stateside, bro. Like, and man, that first night or two that I came home, I had some beers, and I had 30 days off, right? And one of the few times that I smoked while I was in the Marine Corps, I burned a blunt with him. And man, I probably told that dude every bit of that deployment, every bit of blood I had on my hands, every bit of everything, the ups, the downs, the lows. I probably laughed and cried and all of it that night. And then but yeah, people um my friends, we grew up pretty rough, and I grew up getting in fights and everything, and but still, even for them to say like, yeah, you were just different, like there was just something different about you, and look back now, and it's like, yeah, I was a killer. That's what it was. Like I came back and like, I had just been through this crazy experience, this crazy violent experience, and the level of violence that I was accustomed to. Um, just being so much. I still feel bad about this, and I apologize to the kid probably a couple times, and I bought him some drinks and you name it. A buddy from high school, in between the two deployments, we're at home on leave, and we're shooting beer pong, and I'm talking all kinds of shit to my high school friends. And I call one of my buddies, I think like a stupid bullock or something. And my other buddy, I'd gone to high school with him. He grabs me by my shirt collar, joking around. He's like, "What'd you say about Polacks?" Dude, before I even fucking know it, I've choked the kid out. He's on the ground. I'm throwing bombs on him. Like like all I saw was a threat, basically. Like it didn't go through my head of like, this is your boy joking around. Just somebody's like close to me and grabbed me up. And my closer friends at the party were basically like, "Dude, what the fuck were you thinking, bro? We just got back from the war." Like, and a bunch of my other friends were like, "That was fucked up, man." Like, and obviously that night I didn't apologize. I didn't even want to think about whether I was in the right or wrong type of thing. Um, and as I've said, now I've apologized to him a few times over since we've been adults, and I don't. He's accepted my apology, but
Right.
I
I
don't
mean,
think he's
dude,
ever.
you put yourself in those situations and you don't want to be burning bridges, but that I don't know, short fuse that we have, like that inability to I shouldn't say inability, but the heightened sense of awareness, or maybe the how quickly it is to arouse you in this, or maybe arousal's the wrong word there,
I
but
got to be the infantry
but yeah,
type
but
of thing. Well,
you know what I'm saying in terms of like getting you going, and it's very easily to like flip that switch and deeming somebody a threat, and like I've been in that situation before, and I've gotten in fights with friends of mine that I'm very fucking close with, and it's no fault of theirs. It's just the fact that I am very I've been better about it, but for a long time I was very quick to respond with fucking hostility and violence. And um people always ask you like what the fuck is wrong with you, and they don't understand the environment that one not and it's not just being exposed to the combat, right? Like that definitely adds to it. But think about the lifestyle that we live as Marines, like when we're in the barracks, when you're in training, when you're, regardless of whatever it is, especially being in the infantry, like, you are living with the mindset of being comfortable with killing other people. You're living there, and that's not even just the enemy, like if somebody
well, it's
gets up
not
in,
just the mindset of being comfortable. This is something that I don't think that as we integrate our military, again, not to go down politics, but something that I talk about, I don't think the average person understands the mentality of an infantry marine unit. We're there to fight, right? Like it's likened to a caged dog that's been, a fighting dog that's been shook up. It doesn't matter who you let it go on. We're not here. We're not there to defend something. At the end of the day, most of these dudes, myself, most of us are there to kick that fucking door. That's why I was 0311, not anything else, because I wanted to boot those doors open. And um,
and
as
you
we
obviously
integrate
you
our,
obviously got the opportunity to do that too, right? Like you did the damn thing. Um, so coming home after doing that, like it's almost like embedded in your brain that that's the way that you should be doing these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how I do things. This is how I get things handled. It's like if I can't get through the obstacle, like if I can't get over the obstacle, I'm gonna find a way through it, whether that's like, an explosive or a truck or beating it down with your bare hands. Like there's ways that you find um through those obstacles, and more often than not, the ways that we do find, the ability to assess those problems is through violence, like direct action violence. Um,
I, I think some of the first feelings of PTSD I might have started to notice when I was fully out. This like, hey, I don't know if I'm like quite the same or and I would give the example of like, hey, maybe like my car window's half down and I go to reach through it. I'm outside and I go to reach through it to get something. And maybe I get caught. I can't reach something. I have this like instant furious reaction. The first thing I should do is just step back and just blast my hand through the window.
yeah, dude,
That's not rational
yeah,
thinking.
no, no, or like hitting your head up. Like I did this the other, so embarrassing to talk about like where your downfalls are on like these little petty things, but like bumping your head on like a truck, as you're getting in and you're like punching the roof of the truck, thinking that like you're accomplishing something by doing that, but you get so angry and set off. And maybe that's not the best example to use, but just being set off and you're just like, I think anybody that when you bump your elbow or hit your fucking head, you're like you want to beat the shit out of the fridge or the wall, whatever it may be that you bump yourself on. Um, but
You know,
it's definitely heightened. You know what I'm saying? Like those feelings of anger and hostility are definitely heightened, and you can contain it so much. And there's certain things that set you off, like little triggers that whatever they may be, like somebody putting their hands on you, or somebody saying something to you, somebody getting up in your face. It's very easy to set that off. But you get back from Ramadi, you're put into this team leader position, and I think we can both say that, I'm sure that there's going to be just as much in-depthness or talking about things with Afghanistan. So if you're cool, I want to talk about, it's like jumping ahead a little bit, but getting involved in opening up the nonprofit and so, to the way that you've transitioned into doing this stuff. We can save uh talk about Afghanistan and then the full transition out of the Marine Corps. But I want to hit on the nonprofit stuff that you're doing. And go with that because I think that's pretty cool that you're doing that on your own. So where did that kind of lead you to getting that started? You know, after your
Um,
time in service and everything, I guess that's a whole nother fucking journey, but
I'll start, I guess, kind of with the end of Afghanistan. Um, I'm getting ready to get out because I'm in short because of my DUI. I'm getting cock blocked kind of hard on the reenlistment that I want. I watch these other Marines reenlist, get everything they want. I basically drop pack. Fucking, I'm getting out, and I actually hand my fire team over to my saw gunner. We're no longer kinetic at this point. We're just patrolling daily. And the saw team, fire team over to my saw gunner. That's a huge hookup, making sure he'll be a team leader next year, basically. Um, and one of our corpsmen is telling me about wildland firefighting. And he makes it sound pretty cool and like it's a good idea to get out and go do that. So I get out to do wildland firefighting. I move out. My dad, like I said, I'm originally from Connecticut. My dad had moved out to Colorado at some point when I was in high school. Um, so I go out to that same area, Colorado, about 50 miles north of Denver, referred to as the Front Range, Fort Collins area.
yeah.
Yep. So I move out there and get involved in wildland firefighting. Um, and I do that for I think 3 seasons. And I'm having a lot of problems. There's things that I like about it. There's things I absolutely hate about it. Looking back on it, like the attitude I came out of the Marine Corps with, like I don't know how they dealt with me. Basically, like we're hiking into one fire, we're an initial attack crew, like we're supposed to be putting this fire out. And we got firefighters falling out of the hike in, and I'm like essentially in our higher up spaces, telling them, being like, no, fuck that. Send them back to the fucking trucks. They're bitches and can't hang. We gotta go. And just like straight Marine Corps infantry attitude, dealing with civilians, dealing with women in this job. Just, I'm having all kinds of trouble and conflict. And I end
Well,
up,
that's two things. Hold on, real quick. I think that we should hit on is, in the sense of you've held yourself to this certain standard for quite some time, especially, I'm assuming the transitioning over into some leadership roles, going into Afghanistan and, having already been in Ramadi, you've got all these experiences in the sense of when it's on the line, being physically fit or being able to do that. So the way that you handle it with your other Marines when you may be on patrol or something, you're like, get the fuck up here now. Get your, like you have that way of addressing situations like that we haven't been taught to deal with when we get out into the civilian world and you're talking with people that may not have had similar experiences. So one right there, that ability to effectively communicate in the right way to still get your point across, but not do it in that like, Lance Corporal 0311 team leader on his second combat deployment style. And I think anybody that hears that and has been there knows exactly what I'm talking about. Um, and then you've also the other thing that you said was with now working with women. I think for a majority of Marines, especially if it's like a motor T unit or whatever that's attached to an infantry battalion, like even then there are not women that you're working with, being in 29 Palms, we had the comm school, so you'd see women and obviously there's some logistics units or whatever, and you'll see some female Marines, but never really working hand in hand with any female Marines. I think we saw a couple on Mojave Viper when I was getting ready for that workup for my first deployment. And then, you know, there was like some naval we had like on the flight the medic flight line or whatever, there was a couple female naval officers, but that like not ever working directly hand in hand with women, and I think that was a big hurdle for and I'm sure you can attest to this, for getting out and going to jobs where you're working with females. And it's not that you're misogynistic, it's not that you don't know how to communicate effectively with women, but for so long you're trained in working on these things and um with just dudes, and the way that you handle it, the way that you talk to people, like we just had hit on. Yeah, it's like that's another huge obstacle to deal with and how to address those things properly. So we'll jump back into where you're saying like you're getting ready to go attack this fire or whatever. You got people falling out and you got some females that may not take kindly to you like telling them to get their shit together.
yeah. So, I was just having a lot of problems on fire in general. year after, season after season, starting to feel like, I really like this. The pay's really good. And, I'm having a lot of personal problems getting along with people. At this point, years of getting boxed up and shipped around between Marine Corps and fire, kind of over that. And I got into mountain biking, into downhill. Um, and I really got into it basically. Um, so, I kind of left fire, a bit bitter, and, kind of left fire thinking I would go to the private sector of tree work. I wanted to get into climbing. I wanted to be an arborist and start
Hmm.
climbing trees. Um, and, it's kind of in the middle of the recession. It's like, I don't know, 11, I think, 2011. Um, so it's, kind of hard to find good paying work and whatnot. And man, dude, I kind of broke up with my long-term girlfriend that I'd had since before I'd gone to Afghanistan, and myself and one of our snipers from 1/6 Stay from our stay platoon end up living outside of Breckenridge together for a winter to be snowboard bums in the town that's supposed to be South Park, and it was just like super
So what,
trapped.
You're in Bailey, Colorado then?
No, no, and fair play.
Fair play.
Bailey's
Okay,
part of
yeah,
Park
yeah, yeah.
County.
Yeah, that is. I frequented it up there. Well, but yeah, up in like Bailey, Alma,
Yep,
that area up over
yep.
there. I
Just
used to
on the other side.
yeah, I used to grow some weed and live up that way and go snowboarding in Breckenridge all the time. So,
That's exactly what I was doing. I used to call it our felony factory because
yeah.
we were growing weed and mushrooms, and we were taking AR lowers and opening them up and turning those on. We were doing some pretty wild stuff in there.
Allegedly in Minecraft, that's yeah, allegedly. Um
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
some good journeys have come out of, those connections, and it's cool, that you say that a buddy of yours that you served with, that I think that that's an important thing when you get out, and whether you're going through a hard time or you're just wanting to kind of make that transition with somebody else. I think a lot of people get out and think that they can like do this thing on their own, whether they want to take a little distance from the people that they had served with, get some time on to themselves, but they think that they can attack a lot of these issues that they're dealing with by themselves or not getting help from the VA or any other outside entities. And that's fine, but I think that keeping a relationship with, especially the people that were, like with you on these deployments, that's huge. That's probably one of the biggest things that we can do to keep ourselves like in the best state of mind that we can be.
there's 1/6 Marines that I talk to almost daily. If it's just shooting text messages back and forth, and one of my buddies that, as I was saying, we're like face down in Ramadi like that. He's square across from me. He comes out every year and spends about a week with my family and I during 4th of July. This is his third one booked and planned.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but yeah, so I was living in fair play, just doing nothing productive, not being healthy, nothing, coming healthy out of that. We're there for just the winter and go our own ways in the spring. And things are, pretty nuts. I'm traveling around. And I got a dog from a Marine, from another Marine from my unit. He had the mother of this dog in the barracks with us at times. Pretty wild there. And I tried to get a hold of him to get a dog, and he calls me while I'm on this trip, and he's like, "Yo, I got a dog for you." Like, sick, dude. I'm in Connecticut right now. You're in New York. Like, this will work out good. Just check it out. How big's the dog? He's like 8 week old pit bull puppy. They're tiny. Pits aren't that big a dog, so an 8 week old pit's real small. I was like, all right, it'll work out good if the dog's small. So I'm traveling on a motorcycle. Check it out. I'm just gonna dump my backpack. I'm gonna like mail all my belongings back to myself, and I'm just gonna put this dog in the backpack for the next 2,000 miles.
Did you seriously do it?
Yeah,
Oh,
man.
that is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and it worked out perfect,
I would
dude.
say
She
it
just
would have been way cooler if you would have bought a sidecar and just had that little puppy like chilling in the sidecar or something.
But yeah, it worked out perfect, man. Like I would basically stop. Yeah, it's a bike. You got to stop for gas more or less every 2 hours. They don't go that far. So I had to stop for gas every 90 minutes, every 2 hours or so. And I let the dog out, run her around a bit, smoke a bowl or three, put her back in the bag, and she goes back to sleep. It's a little puppy. Like,
Yeah.
Um, um,
Nice.
yeah, man, and that dog really was actually started to be a big change for me. That dog saw me basically through the absolute darkest times of my life, right up to the point where both my kids, everything, to the property we're on now, where I don't imagine us ever leaving. Um, she actually bit my best friend's kid. I think it was just a confusing situation, and she thought she was protecting my family. Um, and I had to have her put down after that. That was She bit a couple people trying to
Yeah,
protect our family. After
that's
my
unfortunate, because that's like one of the things with dogs. Like I have a lab and a husky, and they're like the nicest dogs ever. But if they feel threatened, they'll still fucking, they'll that fur will stand up. They'll show their teeth, and that's hard too with kids and not knowing like when you're like either wrestling around or playing around, or you come in to grab something and that dog's right there, um, you know. And I think everybody knows too, like pit bulls can be a little aggressive and they're very territorial. But that's unfortunate that you had to put the dog down because I know that, obviously the day comes no matter what, but you never think that day is going to be because like your dog bites a kid and you got to fucking put it down.
I didn't think it'd be that. She had cancer, so it was kind of, she was getting kind of sick and everything. But yeah, back to the whole like dudes from your unit and everything. Like I had the dog, I had this dog for nearly a decade, and she really helped me start to calm down. And she was just an absolutely amazing dog. Um, well, yeah, so
Yeah, what's
for the
okay, so
nonprofit,
yeah,
how
yeah, I was gonna say, what's that? So you've kind of taken this trip out, you got the little bit of experience, you've had a job, kind of been a bored bum, going around and just shredding the gnar. Now you got your pup that kind of led you through some of these dark times in your life. Unfortunately, had to put the dog down. Um, you know, what year, what time frame are we talking about now when you start to
well,
think,
I get the dog. I think it was in 2012, and I put her down in 21. I think I basically had her for about a decade. I get the dog. I'm just kind of bumming around, bike bumming. I end up staying with another buddy from the unit up in Big Sky, riding bikes and snowboards, just doing that. And this whole time, I'm neglecting my mental health. I'm not, taking care of myself. I'm drinking more. I'm using drugs more. Stuff's not getting better or more productive. I'm not getting more productive. Um, and what by 2014, I'm shooting heroin. My wife and I are both, IV drug addicts at this point. I had, met my wife. We get married, and more or less we're immediately both back, to using heavy and hard. In Winter Park, we're outside of Denver in the mountains. And I'm in a VA detox and going to VA. I went to the VA in Denver to detox, and that's a whole shit show of its own. But I'm sitting there basically like, how do I never do this to myself again? Like, how do I do something better than what I'm doing? And I come up with this idea to get veterans out mountain biking, and I kind of let it simmer a bit. And that same corpsman that had told me, get out of the Marine Corps and told me about wildfire. Now me and him are living together on and off. We're both homeless basically. My wife and I are living in a one room cabin with no running water, only wood heat in the coldest town in the country. Talking negative double digits is like the norm to not get out of negative double digits type of shit. Um, and just like the super low point. And Billy is on and off living with us, and Billy's just like, fuck yeah, that's a great idea, dude, let's get it, type of thing. So being like this bike bum, I'm already working for this company, this ski resort, Granby Ranch, and they got a bike park, and I'm kind of like their trail crew with some other people. Well, I'm pretty involved with this bike park.
so
I
hold on.
pitched it.
Now during this point in time, when you get this idea, you're involved at the bike park. Is this on your road to recovery, or are you still using at this point?
Oh, bro, I'll get there.
Okay, okay, okay.
So I pitched this idea at them, and I'm like the least professional person. I don't know how professional shit works. And they come back and they're like, check it out. What you wanted to say is called the. type of thing, and they're like, we wrote you up a proper proposal and we're giving you way more than you asked for, like I had this idea, like, hey, we're not busy on Wednesday. If some veterans came through, could you let them use your bikes? And they're like, all right, cover our ass. You're going to be the instructor on the clock. Like, wait, I'm going to get paid for this? Sick. And they're
Yeah.
like, you'll get 2 days of lift tickets, 2 days of passes to the whole package, bikes. You'll get paid for it. And then you can camp on our property. Like they had some campsites I didn't even know about. So they let us use this yurt. They give us this whole package. This bar that I'm working at, is they're giving us like hamburgers so we can have a cookout dinner. And this restaurant my wife's working at is giving us like bacon, eggs, and like pancake mix and like breakfast, so
Right.
that we can cook. And I got this whole thing rolling. I'm doing all this and I'm still shooting heroin. Like Billy's like distracting people, literally, like, hey, look over there, yeah, type of thing. While I'm like in the bushes shooting up because we're staying overnight together. There's no, it's a over 24-hour event. There's no getting around the fact that I'm gonna have to shoot up or I'm gonna get sick. Um, so here I am trying to like help people, and I'm the one that needs the most help. Um, I'm like 3/4 of the way through that summer. One of my best friends, he worked at Granby with me. He was full aware of the whole situation. I got a DUI for being fucked up on heroin driving, and he helped my wife and I get help. And Billy, we didn't have the money to see a doctor in private because the VA is no help at this point, anyways. They're a bit different now, but the VA is no help. Billy gives us the money to get clean. Gives two junkies $1,000 cash, and we do the right thing with it. We follow through. We go, see the doctor. We buy Subox, and
Yeah.
it's a cash, all that. It's a scam. And while we're sick as it gets in bed, coming off heroin, man, we haven't done anything for 3 days or so. We conceived my daughter, um, and man, it's been a uphill
So
successful road.
what year is this then that you're getting clean?
That was 2015. Um,
2015. Okay, so this
yeah.
is still early on in the process. What was it that initially led you to heroin? Like how did you come upon that? And was it because you were looking for a way to, I guess, numb the things that you were feeling or escape the things that you were going through?
Um, I got out, and part of me is just like, dude, I had to do everything I wasn't supposed to do when I got in. So I gotta, party. I gotta smoke coke, and so I get out and I start partying, and then part of that ski bum bike lifestyle is partying and drinking heavy and all of that. So, I'm just kind of partying hard in general. And then I got some bad injuries, that blew my knee out. We all got the back pain, like, so I got these injuries. So I'm randomly, for a decent enough reason, going on or off of opiates to get injuries, and start to find out, like, oh, I kind of like these things, and so it just went from this like party, which is masking, I'm running from my problems. I don't want to be alone, basically. Like I'm partying myself to sleep. I'm waking up and fucking let's go ride. I'm not dealing with like the realities of what I just went through. Um, so, I start to get pulled into opiates because, like, man, those really fuck you up. That's cool type of thing. Like I like this. Um, and next thing I know, it doesn't take long. I'm an all-in type of person, right? So it doesn't take long until I'm shooting speedballs, shooting heroin and cocaine, melting
Yeah.
together.
Did you start sniffing and then start shooting, or how'd you go? I mean, not that it matters,
Um,
but
yeah,
was it a progression, or did you just like get to a point and it just you're all in?
I like most people, you go from pills to the same people you do pills with, either they have then or which start doing heroin. And actually, I might I don't know if I would have ever gone from pills to heroin actually, but a buddy that was a first recon Marine, part of that whole generation kill crew. This absolutely amazing person. I can go on about him. He's been a pro fighter. He runs marathons, um, super successful. He's always dabbled in opiates. And I think him dabbling in heroin made it seem like, well, if this, bigger than life person has a control on it, maybe it's not the demon that everybody makes it out to be or that I've heard. I think it normalized it a little bit. Um, but yeah, I started smoking it, and my wife had a real bad problem when we got together. Um, and that actually, in a way, almost encouraged me because now I can use more. You
Right, you
know,
got somebody to do it with too.
yeah, I wasn't
Um,
getting judged. So it
yeah,
didn't take long for me to go from smoking it to shooting it, and then to go, to start cooking down speedballs.
yeah.
That happened pretty quick.
So yeah, you got pretty heavy involved with it, and I've been not involved with that directly, but a lot of people in my life have, and I know that that's a tough thing to you know rebound from. So you get to this point where your corpsman, a good buddy, helps you out, gives you that help monetarily so you can go and start getting better. Your daughter's conceived. And I would assume that once you guys go through, a little bit of that process of detoxing, then your daughter's born. Is that a path that kind of reinvigorates you to be better?
Yeah, absolutely. That little girl saved our lives. I get emotional around her birthday every year. Her birthday's in the spring, and I find the spring actually just really hard. And generally, we for Afghan vets probably more so than Iraq, but we launch spring offensives every year in Afghanistan. So there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of hurt coming into the spring for me. And my son, this is the craziest shit, man. My son was born 8 years to the day that Sergeant Josh LaFleur was killed. Um, they're a really close friend of mine. So, it's just this whirlwind of emotion, the day that Josh was killed and the day that my son was born. And I've gotten to know Josh's family since. And actually, Billy was really close with Josh. Billy didn't deploy a second time due to mental health. I believe he always blamed Josh's death on himself for not being there.
Not being there? Yeah, that's
And
unfortunate.
I'm about to get emotional about it. But my son's birthday, the day my son was born, was the last time I talked to Billy. He called me, and we had a bit of a conversation. And he took his life a month later. Um, so
Jesus.
that whole time period's always hard. When I go out there and talk about the nonprofit to people, when I say like, dude, this shit, like I was shooting fucking heroin, and this is what got me through it. This is what helped. And the person I created this with took his own life. Like I believe in this cause. Um,
Yeah, dude, I totally feel that 100%. I think all of us, regardless of, where you served or who you served with, can feel that hurt from friends and brothers and fellow service members committing suicide. It's an unfortunate thing to see, especially after you know that these people have been through such traumatic events and, things that where they could have been killed. And then they get back and it may seem like they've got their shit together, but you never truly know what people are really dealing with. And I think that's why it's important to get out there and like where you tie that into the nonprofit and that being a motivating factor for you to keep pushing on and doing that because he was one, the person that you started this idea with, and two, the person that, put you on path to changing your fucking life, dude, saving your life.
Multiple
Yeah.
times. He, as I say, at one point in my life, I was probably closer with him than just about anybody else. Um, and the little bit that I guess I don't know how to put it makes it feel a little better about Billy's suicide. Maybe I blame myself a little less. All of us probably do, without question. Billy was schizophrenic. Shortly after I got clean, we had a big falling out. And talking with his family, it's the same story with talking with other vets. It's this the same interactions with Billy. Um, Not to go down this huge road of mental health, but man, schizophrenia, how you deal with that, how you help people that are schizophrenic, so whole their um, level of mental health.
Yeah, and you know, like, and that's another thing too. I always say, like, I'm not a mental health professional, but I've been through enough shit and like taken the route of multiple different avenues of therapy within the VA and with outside entities and the nonprofit organizations. So, like, I have the ability to stand on that foot in the sense of I've learned the tools, I've experienced a lot of these things myself. I've participated in events in group chats where not that I utilize other people's stories and their hardship, but learning through ways of coping mechanisms or tools that can be utilized to help, direct you or fuel you in a direction that can be impactful in changing your life. Um, so even with this, doing the mountain bikes for 03s and 11Bs, where does that sit now? In terms of what you've been able to grow it to since it really started to go in full swing.
So we start to go in full swing basically right before COVID. My father passes away. Basically, I put the project down for roughly 5 years or so, 4 years or so. I'm doing a lot with mountain biking through that time period. Um, and I basically I leave Granby, I put the project down. My father passes away, and I take some of the his money and I open mountain bikes for 03s and 11Bs. We get off the ground, and the first thing we're doing, I'm in back on that Front Range area. I'm in Loveland, Colorado, and we organize a pool shoot to the senior center. I think we did 2 or 3 pool shoots, which was the coolest thing because we had a World War II veteran straight school us on a snookers table, school a bunch of GWAT vets, So that's the pool shoots were super cool because they incorporated all ages of veterans. Not everybody can go mountain biking nor is interested.
No, right, right.
So then, COVID happens and just, shuts everything down, blah, blah. And I end up, my wife and I make the decision to move up to North Idaho. And at this point, I've got a nonprofit, no base with it or anything. We move up to North Idaho, and I just kind of keep plugging away with what I'd started. I found a good deal on a fleet of bikes. I'd had some donations. I bought 2 mediums and a large, something like that. I bought 3 downhill mountain bikes, and I started organizing group rides up here on some free trails. I don't really like to pedal. I'm downhill only. I'm really not with that pedaling shit. So, and the bikes kind of do 2 different things, or they used to. Now bikes that'll pedal shred. But when I got into it, downhill bikes only went down. They still only go down. But, yeah, if you really wanted to send it, gnarly terrain, big jumps, you had a downhill bike. So, when I got into it, I got into that downhill only stuff. And yeah, I found some good trails up here. We would use my personal truck, and then it grew to using a buddy's truck. That's another veteran. I'd bring my bikes out. I'd give some instruction, which kind of became my background with mountain bikes as I got deep into coaching them. Riding at a high level, and I got deep into coaching them, and started doing those. And still back to that, how do you bridge that gap between the generations? And I'm up here in North Idaho, man. Everybody shoots, so we started putting on skeet shoots in the dead of winter. Started getting in touch with more local veterans that had other nonprofits up here. That gave us a big plug to other, to the groups, to the numbers we wanted. And we started putting on skeet shoots, which are super fun. And then this winter, we partnered with our local ski mountain, Schweitzer, which is a huge mountain. I also work for them, so it made it super easy to get this going. Um, they gave me some free tickets type of thing. Every Wednesday, we would run a veterans group ride, mostly geared at guys that are already riding, that already have their own gear. But we would meet up every Wednesday, and that was super cool. And we'd have everything from like kind of easy days to like, there's some of us that go hard AF and really get after it.
Yeah, now with that, like, it seems that, obviously you're passionate about the mountain biking thing, but you have found a way to incorporate like, you know, other things that bring people together, right? Like the skeet shooting, you got snowboarding, obviously the mountain biking, you're connecting with like the elderly people as well and like doing some of those things. Um, you're able to connect to a larger group of people once that type of stuff happens, right? And I think this is important as well to show that, like, I see that there's some nonprofit organizations out there and they don't like to mesh with other groups, right? They're like, oh, we've kind of got our mission, we've got our thing, we don't want to take away from our numbers.
What
But
they mean is they don't want to. They fear anything about sharing funding.
right, right. That's so with that, like, did you see positivity? And I mean, I think we both know that yes, that's the answer, but just for you to explain on how getting together and creating like this larger group and supporting each other, like, did you see positivity come from that?
Um, on all levels, yes, you see positivity come from it, from non-veterans that have never been around veterans to my uncles, brothers, kids, cousins, went to war, oh yeah, I know somebody that went to Iraq and he came back all messed up. You should get a hold of them. Um, I feel like you run into that story a ton. All the way to, so I get in touch with this one dude up here. Somebody told me, hey, he does a lot with veterans nonprofits. This guy Dante Ramore. I get in touch with Dante, and it kind of slowly builds from there. And I think there's five of local nonprofits up here that we're all working together. We all meet once a month to figure out who's doing what, who needs support in which ways. One of the nonprofits is Warriors Rest. We call him Neil the Real Deal SEAL because, he was a SEAL for 20 years type of thing. So he really focuses on that SF group. North, what is it? Idaho Backcountry Veterans. It's another group that they focus on backcountry stuff. A lot of hunting, a lot of shooting, but we've got all these nonprofits up here together that are all bouncing off of each other, all helping with each other's funding. Um, Not like Wounded Warriors, let me throw them right out there to make sure that anybody that's listening understands, that they are not a good organization. They sue anybody that uses their likewise image or uses the name you could misconstrue as warriors, as Wounded Warriors, which for them to even take that name is absolute garbage as it comes from the Marine Corps Wounded Warrior Battalion.
Yeah.
The people that run the Wounded Warriors Project are not veterans also.
Yeah, no, I that's definitely one of those things that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of nonprofits where I know the people that are like the um top individuals that either started the program or have been running it from the start. Um, and with that, like, you can see where the allocation of funds go and knowing that it's making a benefit instead of being, because I went to a Wounded Warrior project before. And when I went in, I was kind of like, actually, I don't know. I felt like sick to my stomach being there. You come in and you see the people that are there, first of all, and I'm not saying that I'm not a Purple Heart recipient, like, I was never blown up, I was never shot or anything. But getting involved in the, obviously I'm service connected and whatever. I go to this event thinking like, okay, I'll meet some people like in the Chicagoland area. That was not the case at all. They had like this all this, like, I walked in, signed my, they like hand me this shit like t-shirt, hat, here's a water bottle, grab this like scrunchy backpack, like one of those old track and field bags, fill it up with all this shit, a fucking stress ball, pens, magnets, all these things. And I'm thinking in my head, like, where do they get this money from? Like, where, like,
Bro, they
these,
have so
like,
much
like
money.
I'm saying, like, why are you doing this, like handing this, whatever, neither here nor there. It's just, you see the things and the way that money goes into the wrong avenues, you're wasting it on all this shit that's either going to get thrown out or like it's garbage. And it's good to know that you can see things where you've got the firsthand view of the impact that is made and where the money is going, and knowing that like the people that are working behind it are not doing it for an ulterior motive, i.e., just like amassing a fortune by taking advantage of people that have sacrificed.
Yeah, we try to keep it absolute grassroots, all the power to the companies that hook people up with huge trips, huge vacations, whatever it is. But if you're struggling and you go on this great trip and everything's awesome for 2 weeks or whatever, you connect great, do some awesome healing, but then you go back to your community or lack of community and you go back to where you were and the same problems that were bothering you. So we're trying to keep it absolute grassroots at the level. We don't got to send anybody away. What are you doing next Wednesday? Come snowboarding with us, type of
That's yeah,
thing.
that's awesome. And it's something that you can make like um and it's not that a bad thing that some organizations can only do like two, three, four trips a year and it's broken up into different cycles. But within your own community and where you're localized, what's to say that you can't go out and start something that is bringing people together on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis to where you're more involved in knowing that not only with the community and the non-veterans, but the people that did serve in whatever capacity it may be,
And
it strengthens that tribe. You know what I'm saying? And I
it
think
really doesn't cost money in some ways. Like, you can have a group of vets that meet to shoot pool every week. That doesn't cost any money. You don't have to be a nonprofit to do that. I mean, you can do that with just a group of friends, and that's community in general. But, I don't know how to get a grant. I operate on almost no money. I'm doing those billiard shoots with the town of Loveland. I'm shooting on their tables. What did that cost me? They put out the flyers. I'm buying coffee and donuts for the billiard shoot. That was a pretty cool event. Skeet shoots a lot of times. I'll end up leaving with more ammo than I showed up with. We do have a bank account for the nonprofit, and I'll buy 2 or 300 rounds. And a lot of times somebody will show up with a box of 100. No, 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 no. This is my donation. No, we shoot this ammo before yours. All
all
right,
right,
cool.
yeah,
Um,
definitely. So that
and
that
we run the skeet shoot on a Vietnam veteran's property. Um, so that doesn't cost us any money. I don't got to rent a space, anything like that. And he got friends of his to donate clays, to donate some money for shot. So again, it doesn't cost a lot to in some ways make a strong impact.
No, I definitely agree. And there's things that you can do on the local level to really make a deep impact in the people that are around you and getting more people involved. It's like, you see a lot of people out there and I'm sure somebody could say like, well, what do you do like sitting behind a computer and like and not whatever. I could tell you all the things that I do and the work that I put in with nonprofit organizations and the way that I make impacts myself. But um, the way that I make an impact by doing this is getting your story out there so that people can know about things that you're doing. And even if they're not in Northern Idaho, they've got the ability to do it in Louisiana. They can do it in Southern California. They can do it in Texas. They can do it in Michigan. So there's like you're like setting the example or showing the example that you can get out there and be able to do something and make an impact. And it could start off with 3 people, then it can shift to 12 people, and the next thing you know, you've got like a company size meetup once a month, and you got people together either riding mountain bikes or working on cars or whatever the case may be with how you attack that situation. So what's your next step then with the nonprofit and where you want to go with that?
Oh man, like I always say, it is kind of a back burner project though. It doesn't really make me any money. I'd have to bring in so much money to feel comfortable taking a draw from the NPO. So at the moment, I've gotten to a point in some ways I feel like it kind of runs itself. Hey, like I was saying, those skeet shoots, person whose property we do them on has gotten a lot donated for those. So now all I got to do with those is talk with the boys that are generally participating in these things, figure out what's a good date, and we'll run another one. And I'm going to go out and shoot. It's not going to cost my NPO any money. And we're all going to go have a good time. Something between 10 and 20 of us are going to go have a barbecue. And that's kind of my idea. Over that it can run itself. Over the winter, I got the whole partnership with the ski resort organized. Every Wednesday, the Backcountry Veterans Group. It's a corpsman that runs that chapter of it up here. Doc, myself, and Dante. One of the three of us would be out. Doc was the most consistent. Um, Kind of a far drive for me, and I ended up having some injuries. I've constantly got more or less injuries from the core. that flare up and whatnot. So I had to take had to chill out snowboarding this season, and those guys kept meeting every Wednesday without me being there. And the everybody's so supportive. I just left my free tickets in my locker at work, and if somebody came up and needed a free ticket, I would actually have one of my employees, or not my employees, one of my coworkers, um, go and grab the tickets out of my locker and pass it off to either Doc or to Dante.
Nice.
So again, the fact that that can just run itself, whether I'm there or not, is awesome. I want to. We'll do. I think every third week we'll do a mountain bike event over the summer. We got two more skeet shoots planned. I'd say two more for while it's still nice. I also like to do them in the middle of winter up here when nobody wants to get out. This year, that was hard with the weather patterns. But yeah, so I guess my goal with the nonprofit is for it to kind of be able to run itself in a way. Keep a lot of community involved, keep a lot of us doing things active together, um, and for me to be able to focus on the big things in my life, which are family. I got a decent little property. I got 5 acres, something like 20 chickens. Right now, I got 2 pigs. I'll probably have another 4 or 5 over the summer. Um, I had, dogs, cats, all that.
Nice.
And a small tree company. Getting back to the wildfire thing, I ended up, throughout all this, I did get into climbing, and I've still been cutting. So I've got a small tree company that keeps me busy enough.
That's good. And what about and you talk about like some injuries that you're still dealing with and shit that you got going on. Did you ultimately find a good way to work with the VA? Do you have your benefits taken care of and all that stuff?
I'm 100 PMT,
Yep.
so not only am I took care of in that sense, my family is. That helps out a lot. Um, for the most part, I'd say I more or less just deal with it, right? Like I deal with knee pains more or less every day. I deal with back pain, feet and ankle problems. I see you through the whole interview dealing with ear problems. It looks like,
Yeah.
I think all of us, just kind of deal in some way or another in terms of mental health. I could probably give a whole interview about dealing with the VA and dealing with mental health and what I do or don't think it can or can't look like, or
Right.
addiction. My wife and I essentially beat a heroin addiction with minimal drug counseling.
Right.
Um,
And that I think that would be good to couple that with like when we come back and do this again and we talk about you being in Garmsher for that Afghanistan deployment, we'll kind of hit more so on um after what it was like initially getting out, and then we can revisit the VA in that process. I think that that would go well together. We did kind of jumble things around a little bit, but I wanted you to be able to obviously get the ability to talk about Ramadi, that definitely being an impactful deployment and like, early on in a young man's life. And, that kind of set the pace for some of the problems that you would have down the road, ultimately leading you to this point where now you're finding a way to give back and be more involved with not only the veteran community, but your local community. So, Devin, it's really cool to see the shit that you're involved with, how you're still giving back. I am looking forward to doing this again, getting more in depth with your time in Afghanistan and then that initial transition, out of the Marine Corps. So, anything that you got to add? I usually ask, I guess I'll just ask now since we're doing it. I ask everybody, through the things you've experienced, like you couple Iraq, Afghanistan, like you fought on both in both parts of the war, experience loss and the ups and downs and all the things that you were told, and then ultimately find out, um, here we are with the global war on terror being over. If you could sum up your experience in one word, to describe the GWOT, what would that word be?
One word to describe the GWAT for me, I'd probably go with wild. Just I actually tell people, as like the young man type of thing. Some of it was some of the reason I enlisted. Basically, what was the wildest thing I could do? What was the craziest? Oh, you're gonna tell me if I sign my name right here, you're gonna send me overseas, put a gun in my hand, maybe give me a machine gun and like fucking sign me up? That sounds like, literally a wild ride. It was, from being stateside, drinking with the boys, training, the deployments, the firefights, the just all of it. I'd probably describe, those 4 years as just wild,
Yeah.
um, intense. I think would be, another maybe a good single world, but I'd go with my experience. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's good, dude. I think that hits the nail on the head. It's crazy to see that throughout the people that I've interviewed, I've got a couple episodes dropped, and then I've got like a backlog of interviews that I've done, probably up to 30 people at this point. And each time I ask that question, it's not like it amazes me, but it's all things that I can correlate to, and I think every other veteran can as well, with the sense of each one of those words that an individual describes, you can listen to somebody else use a different word, and you're like, man, I've had similar, like, like betrayal, courageousness or ambivalence or confusion, and like all these things. It's like at some point in time throughout those experiences that you had, um, I felt most of those, like, I don't know if you want to call it a feeling or whatever, when you're talking about a singular word, but I can definitely relate, to everybody's description of what the global war on terror was for them.
I mean, you say the betrayal, and I do say more so amongst veterans, not quite the civilians too often, but like we got duped. Like how we got tricked into fighting a 20-year war.
Yeah.
So hearing somebody say betrayal, I could see that
Yeah, and
one
and
for
that and that
sure.
that actually came from another 1-6 Marine, Mason Roderick, the guy that wrote that book, Rock Eater. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, but he was
I
with one.
do, and I listened to your guys's. Yeah, yeah, I listened to his interview.
Yeah, he that was his word, was betrayal, and it's like that holds pretty true to, I think, what a lot of people can ultimately summarize it with after everything has been said and done. But on that
And
note, no,
I
go ahead.
got. It's interesting hearing a 1-6 Marine say betrayal. Um, Hearing that it's a 1-6 Marine, it hits even more to home. I don't know how or who or what. I got a copy of Charlie Wilson's War while we're sitting in Afghanistan. If you've ever read it or seen the movie, they're very different. In short, the book basically makes him out to be like this bumbling senator and these cocaine CIA cowboys, and it lays out the Iran Contra scandals. So I'm sitting in Afghanistan. I just read the Iran Contra scandals, and who comes out to see us for multiple times? He came out multiple times to us in Iraq at the Gov Center, but Oliver North. I got this copy of Charlie Wilson's War, which heavily talks about Oliver North's involvement in the Iran Contra scandals. I'd gotten this DUI. They put me in a team leader role. I think I'm all good to re-enlist, and I get offered this terrible re-enlistment, because of it. And as I was saying, man, like yeah, betrayal. I definitely felt betrayed at that point.
Yeah,
Um,
because think of the sacrifice that you've put in, and the time and the blood, the sweat, the tears, the loss, the struggle, the ups, the downs, the whole fucking thing. A lot of that packed into 4 years. People don't, they're like, oh, I went to college, took me 4 years. You're like, dude, not the
you went
same, brother.
home on,
Yeah,
like you go for like what's that like 5 months out of the year if you really break college down, 6 months out of the year for like
yeah. And it's but looking at that, fuck, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Forgot what I was saying. Um, but yeah, it's just a lot of stuff packed into 4 years of time, and you know, it's crazy the outcome that can be, had. I mean, obviously, look at the wild ride that you've had to take, that you've been on since that. So, Devin, I think that's a good point for us. We've been at this for a minute. I know that you got to get back home too. It's late over here in Chicago. I appreciate your time, you coming on, talking with me. giving me that detail of, the things that you've experienced, because I know it's not always easy to do that, and the fact that you're going to put it out there for the world to see. We're going to link up again. We're going to do Afghanistan, talk a little more in depth about that, and get a little more into the mountain biking stuff, see where you're at next time we do this. But again, I appreciate your time. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the things that you've done. And we'll get together soon, all right, man?
Appreciate it, man. I really appreciate you giving me the chance to talk and all of it. Appreciate it. Looking forward to talking with you again and listening to some more of your podcast as I wait to hear mine come out.
Yeah, dude, we'll get back at it. We'll get some good stuff in, and I think that it's cool too to see that the relationships that I'm able to build with people, you never know, pretty soon I could end up in northern Idaho coming shredding the gnar with you. So fucking love snowboarding. Um yeah, I think that's a good way to end this one, and we'll see you soon, all right? And guys, that was Devin Nesselroth with the Pressing Forward podcast. Take care. We'll talk to you later.